Hey, everybody! Okay, welcome to another episode of the Adventures Podcast as a working title. Um, we're not quite sure what to call it yet, but today I have a special guest, Megan Go, or as she's known on social media, especially Instagram, Megan on the Go, which is very clever. Megan is a Fulbright scholar in Taiwan. She moved to Taiwan from the U.S. during the pandemic. Ever heard of it? And she's got some really interesting insights on life in two different places during a worldwide pandemic, and her experience is super interesting. So I wanted to have her on here. So let's have Megan tell us a little bit about herself to get started. Thanks for coming on the show. She muted? Okay, wait, hang on. Let me let's try this here.
Later.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi. It's all
Okay,
good?
there we go. Okay. So let's have Megan say that again. Wouldn't be Adventures
Okay.
Podcast without the guest being muted.
Okay, so I'll give my intro again. No worries. All right, well, thank you for having me today again. I'm Megan, and as Ed mentioned, I am a Fulbright scholar currently living in Taiwan. I moved in the middle of a pandemic, beginning of the year. I am an English teaching assistant for the Taiwanese public school system, and I'm excited to be here to share my experiences. It's been a really exciting couple of months.
Excellent. Well, as Mooselight Kingdom says, Megan is heard. We hear you.
I am heard. Thank
It's been
you.
exciting. We hear you. We hear the excitement. Okay, so I bet the question on everybody's minds is what brought you to Taiwan? Like, why Taiwan? Specifically out of all the places you could have chose to go, and like, how did that kind of decision come about?
Right. So after it was around junior year of my college experience, I was interested. I knew I didn't want to just I knew I didn't want to just stay in the US for right after graduation. I kind of wanted to see the world. I feel like it was the perfect time to do so. So I applied for a couple of programs, but the Fulbright scholarship program was one of them. It's like an intercultural exchange program that the U.S. government funds. So I decided to choose Taiwan. I think at that time, I think it was just a gut feel. Like I can't really pinpoint exactly why Taiwan was calling my name, but I think I wanted to be in Asia. I feel like I wanted to be close to my family here. I still have family in the Philippines. I was born there, and I wanted to be somewhere where I could practice my Mandarin. I'm really not that great. So, disclaimer, heads up, if I use any Mandarin throughout this live stream, it's probably going to be a very butchered version of Mandarin or Taiwanese. So, I apologize in advance. I wanted to be in a country where I could practice my Mandarin. And I know, like, from all my friends who have told me who have traveled to Taiwan, that this place is amazing. So, I said, okay, why not? Let's do it. And I think at that point it was a gut feel because right now, for the 2020 to 2021 Fulbright scholarships, they've all been either postponed or canceled because of COVID, except for Taiwan and maybe two other countries. So I think overall it was really unexpected, but I did, yeah, it was a good choice.
Yeah, so I mean that's the like basically when you hear about countries that have been doing better during this pandemic and kind of handling things better, getting you know, infections under control and being able to stay more open, like Taiwan and New Zealand are kind of the places that are at the forefront of most people's minds, I think, like smaller population on islands, so yeah, that was a good choice, I'd say. So were you nervous at all, like thinking about traveling during like the pandemic and the whole airport situation, or kind of what things would be like when you got here? Were you like, um, more quarantined in the U.S. than you are in Taiwan?
Right. So I think, well, back in the US, so we were all sent home from school in March
Mhm.
for spring break. Then they said, oh, we'll extend spring break. And then spring break ended up being the entire year. But
Right.
so I was pretty much home for the rest of my time there. So when I actually when I found out about Fulbright, it was around April, and I was really excited. But unfortunately, I think 2 weeks later, that's when the announcement
Yeah.
that Fulbright was going to postpone all grants. That came along like around 2 weeks later. So it was kind of the whole Fulbright program. So actually, Taiwan was ready to have us over because like they were doing fine.
Mhm.
But Fulbright said no, we are postponing all 2020 to 2021 programs up until the earliest January. But unfortunately, some got canceled. But so I think overall, I was more nervous about whether the program would even continue or not,
Right.
since COVID, you could never tell.
Mhm.
So I was mostly just worried about that because they said the three options that would happen, at least for Taiwan, would be we start in January and have a shortened grant, which is what I am going through right now. Start in January, or kind of start in the summer instead, which was kind of a weird option. I wasn't sure how that was going to work. And the last one would be we just get deferred to the next year, but I wouldn't know how that would impact like future Fulbright grantees. So I think it all worked out, but in the moment it was quite stressful because we didn't know what was going to happen. But they sent us our visa application stuff, our health certificate requirements in the meantime. So I think as someone who kind of just stayed at home, like my family and I, we were more on the cautious side. So I barely went out. I think I only went out, I can count probably in one hand how many times I met friends outside. It was quite, yeah, it was really kind of lonely, but I knew it was, just to keep my family safe and
Yeah.
myself too. So it was, yeah. So every time I went out to get a health test, because I had to get a long screening. I had to get a couple of shots, like booster shots here and there. Had to go get some documents signed for my visa, and that was a little stressful.
This was in the
Um,
U.S.
in the U.S., yes, this is the
Was that
U.S. So
was that something that like the Taiwanese government had um like put those uh kind of requirements, or was it the Fulbright program or your university?
oh, it was just the Taiwanese government just trying to get a cultural exchange visa
Oh, okay.
over. Like anyone would have to go through this with or without COVID. This is
Oh,
not
really?
COVID, really. Yes, yes.
Even the
So
lung
like when I
screening and
studied,
stuff.
yeah, it's
Wow, okay.
a lot of work. Because when I studied abroad in Europe, it was kind of the same thing too. We had to get a lot of paperwork done for our visas.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a familiar stress, but because of COVID, we kind of made it a little worse.
Yeah.
But it was okay. Other than that, it was just mostly the waiting. I was very excited to come. I was talking to some other Fulbrighters who were already here because they were kind of in a special situation, but some of them decided to stay on because none of us in our year made it. So made it to Taiwan for the semester before. So I was talking to them and I was getting excited, but also at the back of my mind, I had that thought saying, "Oh, I may not. There might be a chance this might be postponed even more, or may not
Mhm.
happen." And I think the other thing that was more stressful was getting, I think, just getting the negative COVID test because I knew I was going to be negative,
Mhm.
but Taiwan, you have, I think right now, even for other airlines around the world, but at that point, Taiwan required you to get a negative COVID test exactly 3 days before your flight, or less.
Mhm.
And at that point, COVID testing, I think it might be a little different now, but at the time, it was during the holiday season. Like I flew out December 31st. So trying to time everything was quite difficult.
Right.
Um, I know one of my COVID tests came out 4 4 days before my flight, and I was like a little worried, so I had to get another COVID test done, and just scrambling for that was very stressful. Um, and also, I think just like what you mentioned, being in the airport too was quite terrifying because as someone who's never really been outside, I had to. I wore a face shield. I kind of I had like a not N95, but something like that. I had a,
It's
a
like a
mask that looked like
respirator
one,
mask, right? Or
something like that.
it had like a valve.
I want. I may have a. I may have something like that here, but I can't find it right now. It's not really an N95, nothing that serious, but it's a step up over like the regular face mask.
Right.
And I just kept sanitizing. I had 2 bottles of hand sanitizer with me. I didn't talk to anybody.
Oh,
I
you
kind of
got a
just
little
stayed to. I kept to myself. And
you're a little
I was
frozen
really
there.
worried.
Hang on.
Oops. Wait.
Here, try turning your camera off and turning it back on.
All right.
You froze for a second too.
Wait, am I good? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're frozen.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm back. Wait. I,
okay. There
okay,
you
is
go.
it
You're
all
good.
good?
You're good. Yeah. So anyway,
Okay.
so you're saying you didn't talk to anyone at the airport?
No, I kind of just I don't really recall. I just everything's kind of a blur right now,
Yeah.
but on the airplane too, when everybody was eating, I ate after everybody else did.
Hmm.
And I would always put on my mask in between bites because I was just so worried.
Yeah.
Because I think if you test positive, if you catch COVID at any point and test positive in Taiwan, they would send you back home.
Right.
So that's the last thing I wanted to
Hmm.
happen. So it was just a
Yeah.
very stressful time overall, but I made it and we're all good.
Yeah, honestly though, like that, yeah. I mean, me personally, like I've been more on the cautious side as well, and like the thought of like going into an airport and, during especially the height of COVID in the US at that time. When was that again? It was in the winter, right? January?
Yeah, it was December 31st when I flew
Yeah.
out. So it was
So,
when like a lot of cases were spiking in the
yeah.
US.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, that's the thing that we all live with is, we're all like just so nervous and cautious about everything now, and, rightfully so, but it does take its mental toll, and so especially like being in a long airplane like flight with a bunch of other people, like, and you don't know what their status is. I mean, I'm assuming for most international flights, I don't know how it works domestically. I haven't flown during the pandemic at all, but you have to get a negative test within a few days of flying usually, right? I think I have some friends that went abroad to Hong Kong to do a like internship thing, and that was their deal too. They had to do it like within 3 days, I think. So that's pretty hard to get at that time of the year, like right after Christmas, right, before New Year's, like people are in the office. So I can imagine the kind of stress, like, and then, oh, what if I get it? And then I have to stay in this hotel and then I have to get sent back. Oh yeah, I guess I know, like, cause we're friends and I follow you on Instagram. I know that you had like this quarantine period once you got to Taiwan, right? When you were
Right.
like in a hotel room. So, I mean, that's like the reality for a lot of people that have been studying abroad or, working abroad during this time. But for everyone else that hasn't had the luxury of experiencing that, what was that like? Like once you arrived in Taiwan, what happened?
Right. So the process was we arrived in Taiwan. Immediately, like they got you in line. I mean, you got leave the airport. I forgot if I grabbed my luggage first, but
Mhm.
basically they shove you all into lines and then make you buy a Taiwanese SIM card upon arrival because that's how they track you
Right, right,
throughout
right.
the entire pandemic. So I'm not sure if you are a Taiwanese citizen or already have lived in Taiwan. I don't really know what that's like, but for foreigners, we had to get a Taiwanese SIM card at least
Mhm.
for 30 days. And so I bought one there, registered. The people
Did they
at
make you buy
the
it or did they provide funds for you to do that?
they made us buy it.
Okay.
But it's okay. I mean, it is what it is. I think it could have been cheaper if I bought it elsewhere, but since it's the airport, it was quite
Right.
pricey.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, like I didn't really have a choice at that point, but I didn't mind. So that's how they kind of track you, and you had to fill out a. It was a very long form, but kind of just you had to put in your phone number, like where you traveled from. It was a very long form, mostly in Mandarin, so I struggled a little bit, kind of getting through it. But you had to show that to the, I guess, the immigration area, and
Right.
then they let you pass by, check your temperature, all that stuff, the typical, and then uh, for because since we came, most Fulbrighters came together. We mostly came all like arrived on the same day, around like maybe an hour apart or so. So a lot of us kind of gathered. We had to gather in our little pods. So we all are placed in different sites in Taiwan. So disclaimer: I'm not in Taipei. I think everyone may just assume I'm in Taipei because when they think Taiwan, oh, Taipei. No, I'm in a city called Taichung, and it's around 2 hours by train away from Taipei. So not bad, not bad. I really like the city anyway. I'll get into that later. But so I met up with my Taichung uh, ETAs. ETA is short for English Teaching Assistant, so I'll just be using that throughout.
Okay.
So other Taichung writers, ETAs, we all met up in our little like, site cohorts, and we got placed into taxis. We got separated into taxis, and I was in the taxi with two other Taichung writers, and they drove us down to Taichung. I think for other sites that were further away, most of them were placed either in Taipei or the South Kaohsiung. So they
Mhm.
kind of just separated us depending on our site. But
We have
fortunately for us,
we have someone saying that you love Taichung.
yeah,
Is
I
this
love
accurate?
Taichung.
Okay. This
Yeah,
this
I love
person
Taichung.
Kate K Cruz has the inside info, I'm guessing.
Oh, hi, Kate. Yeah, she's my cousin. She does have the inside info. I tell her everything.
Yeah, sorry to
Yes,
interrupt.
so it is
Oh
cheaper than
yeah, gotta
Taipei.
shout out.
Oh, shout out! Oh no. Yes, it's a shout out. That's my cousin. But yes, Taichung's great. I really like it here. But we were quarantined. We were kind of in our taxi little bubbles, and then got sent to the hotel. They made us, at least for my hotel. Do you know the app Wine? It's
Yeah.
kind of our way to communicate. Yeah, it's for those who don't know, it's like Facebook Messenger, but it's popular in Taiwan. It's very I mean, I like it. I'll go into it later because they have all these cute stickers, but they made us add the hotel staff online. And that's kind of how we would communicate with the hotel
Mhm.
staff if we needed anything. So I was there for
Was that in
actually not
English or Chinese or
it was in well when they would message us like when our food arrived, it would be in like four different languages. I think it was English, Mandarin, Korean, and yeah, Chinese. Wait, no, English, Mandarin, Korean, and I think Japanese was one of
Japanese?
them.
Okay. Yeah.
In a while, there were at least four
It was
languages.
like the default message, like your food.
Is dear ma'am, sir, your food is ready. Reminder not to smoke, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes, so I was in quarantine in the hotel for 16 days. Actually, it wasn't 2 weeks; it was 16 days. I'm
In
not
your
really
own
quite sure.
room.
Yes, I was by myself. Yes, we all had our own rooms. Uh, and it actually wasn't that bad. I think a lot of people may have been itching to get out,
Mhm.
or they kind of complained about not having a view. My view was just another house right across the hotel, but so not exactly the best. But actually people didn't have windows, so
Ooh.
I would go. I that would not be good for my mental health.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I
Yeah, it's
heard. I'm not so sure how accurate that is. I don't think that should be
maybe you have
allowed.
like
But
windows in an alleyway, so you just see a brick wall or something. Yeah, view of a
yeah,
building over no windows any day. I agree, Finchel.
yeah, windows. I don't care what my view is. I just need a window.
Yeah,
So
need
it
that
was okay.
sun.
I just needed some sunlight. Yeah, some sunlight. It was actually kind of cold when I arrived in Taiwan. I think people underestimate how cold Taiwan can be, but it was
Was it
around
evening
40
when you
degrees.
arrived?
Hmm?
Was it evening when you arrived?
It was morning. It
Oh,
was
okay.
fine, but I mean the duration of my stay. Uh, was actually quite cool. So I asked, like, I had to message the hotel staff, "Oh, can I have a heater?" And they sent me like a little fan thing because I couldn't really get the thermostat to work. It was even when I tried to translate it, it just wouldn't work. So I had to ask them
Is it one
for a
of
little
those
heating.
like kind of wall mounted fans things that's like air conditioning and heating in one?
Yeah, I think so. It was one of
Okay.
those. But I
It had a
just so
little
I think I'm
remote.
putting on the fan. It wasn't a remote, it was just the buttons and
Oh, okay.
the but oh, and yes, Phil and chill. View of a building was better than having no windows. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes,
Did you get
but,
a Oh,
get
sorry.
what? Hmm? No, go on, go on.
Did you get a choice of hotel or did they just kind of place you anywhere?
They just kind of place I don't really know what the hotel situation is like, but I think they have specific quarantine hotels because
Right.
I can't imagine, if this is a quarantine hotel, I don't think they would want other, guests who
Hmm.
are just visiting Taiwan, like Taiwanese people just staying in a hotel where people they potentially may have COVID. So
Right.
I think this was a specific quarantine hotel and the staff
Interesting.
was just trained. Yeah, I think it's very specific. So
Was
I
that
remember,
part of your Fulbright program that paid for it or um okay, cool.
yeah, so I'm glad they covered the cost. I think it would be quite pricey. I'm not sure if Taiwan would cover the cost. I think it's
Mhm.
something you have to pay out of pocket if you are just a foreigner. Or you can stay with family maybe, but it's just I mean, in our case, it was just like go to a hotel. Um, yeah. And they would deliver us food every breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They would message us like, "Oh, your food's ready." I would hear the shuffling outside my door, them like putting the food on a chair, and then they leave. Then I go grab the food. Um, so that was kind of my routine. Just be really excited for the food to come. We did some workshops during the pandemic because normally we'd come in August, have a month-long orientation,
Right.
and then start teaching in September. But because we were online, they moved our they moved our orientation to the online format. I didn't mind.
Yeah.
My Wi-Fi was a little funky, but I didn't mind.
So that's good. At least you had like some sort of social system starting to build, even though you're isolated in your hotel for 16 days, you said, right? Yeah.
Yes, it was 16 days.
So, and you said they put it on a chair. So they had like a chair outside your room that was like the table that they put your food on, basically.
Yes, or anything you really needed. So I would message them asking, "Oh, can I have more toilet paper, or can I have like extra bags, or if I needed more soap or something, they would just leave it there."
Cool. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. And then for the food, I'm just curious about the food. I'm always curious about the
Mhm.
food. Was that
Of
like
course.
could you order anything you wanted or did they give everyone kind of the same thing or was there any way to like request certain things?
It was very standard, I would say, unless you specify that you were allergic or you had dietary restrictions.
Mm.
Um, one person in my cohort, she's pescatarian, so she told them that. But I think there was a little miscommunication because I think they understood it as she only could eat fish,
Oh,
so
okay.
she could eat vegetarian dishes, but they just kind of gave her fish. But they do adjust, but other than that, it was very standard. For 3 meals a day, they would just give everybody in the building the same thing. You could, or they, at least for our hotel, we were allowed to Uber Eats stuff. We would just tell them to like leave it at the desk, the front desk, and tell them what room number, so they'd
Oh,
bring it
that's
up.
cool.
So if you
That's
didn't
good.
like the food or if you wanted more, you could just order something.
How much time did you spend on the app like looking for what's around?
I'm not a very picky eater, so I was okay with the hotel food. Like I feel like people in my cohort kind of complained a little, but I
Right.
I was just excited to have Asian food again. So
Yeah.
I didn't order that much. I ordered boba twice. I thought I just deserved it. So I ordered boba twice and I was surprised looking at the prices. Considering it was Uber Eats, it was relatively cheaper than
Mm.
anything I would get in the US.
Yeah, I heard that like I've had a lot of friends and people I know that have lived in Taiwan. They say that the food is really good and really inexpensive. So that's awesome.
Yeah. It was
We're
very on it. I'll get into that, but it was quite cheap.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're gonna talk about food. We're gonna talk a lot about food.
We're gonna talk
I'm
all about food.
So you were saying that your Mandarin is not like super fluent necessarily, right? You would say.
I always every time I'd be like, "Oh, 不好意思,或者中文不太好." Everywhere I go, it's not that great because
说的不
I
错.
speak 不错 oh
Yeah,
谢谢
not bad.
觉
That's
得
good though.
yes I feel like because I speak Hokkien at home and
Mhm.
Tagalog and English, so
Oh wow.
I learned a little Mandarin growing up, but if you don't practice it, you kind of lose touch. So I think I do. I definitely downplay how much Mandarin I know. I feel like I do know more than I think I do, but I just get kind of nervous speaking
Yeah.
it. So I just tell people straight up like, "Oh, I can't. I can't speak it
Right.
that well."
Yeah. So I'm curious to know if a lot of the other people in your Fulbright program had any experience at all with Chinese whatsoever, or if like most of them were totally new, like never had learned Mandarin before, or like knew anything before they went.
Right. So I think overall, I think that's also why I chose Taiwan because for certain Fulbright programs, for certain Fulbright countries, you do need to know a certain level. Especially I think for the research grants or the study or the master's degree, PhD stuff. Um, like I think in Spain, if you want to be an English teacher there, you need to know like an intermediate level of Spanish. They'll indicate that on the site. But for Taiwan, they said you didn't need to know Mandarin coming in. So I said, nice. I don't know a lot of Mandarin, so I will go that route. But of course, I wanted to learn more. But yeah, so I think you'll find a mix of people in my cohort, or at least all of Taiwan Fulbright, that either have very little knowledge of Mandarin, like the bare basics, or
Right.
or um there are those who've studied Mandarin for 4 years at university or like speak it at home
Right.
with their parents, grandparents. So it's kind of a mix.
So wait, did you say that for this program you didn't need any Mandarin knowledge at all to apply, right?
Yes, yes. You didn't need to know anything.
That's interesting. So you said that you speak Hokkien at home.
Yes.
Would you say that you're fluent in Hokkien
I think it's kind of hard. I think also maybe I just
conversation?
don't have a lot of self-confidence, but it's just the thing is when I speak Hokkien at home, it's always a mix of English, Hokkien, and Tagalog. So everything's sprinkled in one. So I feel like if I try to speak with other Hokkien speakers or Tagalog speakers outside of like my family,
Yeah.
I think they'll be confused because I will sprinkle other languages in it too.
Okay. So your cousin Kate is saying that you are fluent.
No, I'm not.
Nali, nali.
对, no.
Oh man.
Is she though? No, I'm kidding.
So she says you talk shit about her frequently. I'm guessing in Hokkien she's saying.
Fluently.
So okay, so that's pretty interesting that you mix three languages when you talk at home. So is I'm just gonna like ask, is your family kind of a Chinese Filipino family?
Yeah, so my grandparents are from China, from southern part of China in like the Fujian region.
Hmm.
And so they were born there, then they moved to the Philippines. So my parents were born in the Philippines, and so was I. So it's kind of an interesting mix of cultures because I have a Filipino passport and everything, and I was there for like 13 years of my life. But it's a little, there is a big Chinese Filipino community there, especially like in the city I grew up in. So it's kind of when I'm in Taiwan, no one knows I'm actually like from the Philippines. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of, or anywhere I go, no one can tell like I'm from the Philippines. So I think it's just an interesting experience.
So I know that, or at least I know zero Hokkien or Taiwanese at all. Basically, I
Yeah.
just know Mandarin, like some random
Yeah.
phrases in
Can-
Cantonese. But
yeah.
okay, so from what I understand, Taiwanese the is kind of like a subset of Hokkien. Is that correct, would you say?
Yes. I think Hokkien is it's a little different in each country. So, um, I oh thank you, Phil and Jill. Thanks. Oh, it's my big bro on Twitch. So yeah,
Oh,
it's an
nice.
interesting background. I'm an
Hey
interesting
there.
person. I'm
Yes,
big.
it's an
But
awesome background mix of cultures. We love it.
it is. It is. I was. Yeah, I take pride in that. But so Hokkien, I think, kind of changes depending where you are because I feel like Philippine Hokkien is not the same as like Taiwanese Hokkien.
Mm-hmm.
Taiwanese Hokkien is basically Taiwanese. So it's and you'll find like people in Malaysia they speak Hokkien too, or
Mm-hmm.
in Singapore they speak Hokkien too, and
Right.
they're quite similar. I would say in Taiwan, I think that's kind of like my redeeming factor here because I don't speak Mandarin that well, but I understand Taiwanese Hokkien to an extent.
Mm.
So, and a lot of people don't expect that from foreigners, or they just assume you speak Mandarin. But like, oh,
That's like
I so when
advanced.
it's advanced, like I, but when they start switching to their local dialect, I'm like, no, well, I understand that. You can't really talk about me behind your back. I understand.
So, okay, so are you like are you able, I'm just very curious. Are you able to kind of like, I know you normally speak a mixture of Tagalog and Hokkien and English all mixed with your family, but are you able to kind of take the Hokkien aspect out and like communicate with like people in Taiwan that speak like Taiwanese subset of Hokkien, or is that kind of like difficult for you to like separate it out?
I think with Taiwanese Hokkien, it's at least 70% like the Hokkien I speak.
Mm.
So I don't actually understand all of it, but I can understand the basics. And
Right.
well, I would say in Taiwan, the further north you get, less people speak it. And people my age don't really speak it as much. It's more of the older generation that does,
Mm-hmm.
or more people in the south or rural areas. So I'm more of in a city closer to the north. A lot of people in Taichung don't speak Taiwanese, so or at least speak it fluently. So I'm not really able to really practice it that much. But in school, um, I sit in with my fifth graders and I sit in their Taiwanese class. So I'm trying to learn a little more from there. So I kind of
You're like
understand
auditing their
maybe.
Taiwanese class.
Yes, I'm basically kind of just
Awesome.
sitting there. I'm a exchange student in their class. I'm like one of them. So it's funny because I sit with them fifth period for Taiwanese and sixth period. I teach the same class in English. So, but
That's cool.
I'm trying to practice my Taiwanese slash Hokkien through that. But a lot of like my co-teacher's family when I met them for Lunar New Year, they were telling me I speak better Taiwanese than like my people my age or like their own daughters. So I
Oh,
think
okay,
Taiwanese
that's
is
cool.
just something that people don't really speak as much, which is
Mm.
kind of sad. But I hope that they keep the language alive.
Yeah, I've watched a few Taiwanese dramas, and I noticed that um like some characters will mostly just speak in Taiwanese, and
Hmm.
like a lot of other characters speak in Mandarin, and they'll speak each other's languages. Like the characters that mostly speak Mandarin, they'll just speak in Mandarin. The one character will reply in Taiwanese, and then they'll reply in Mandarin. They like totally understand each other. Have you seen a lot of
Yeah.
that kind of thing going on, or is that kind of just the TV shows?
Oh no, that does happen. Like in public, I would kind of, especially among the older generation, I would hear them speaking a mix of Taiwanese and Mandarin, like back and forth. So when my Mandarin fluent friends are listening in, they get really confused because they sprinkle Taiwanese in there. But I'm like, okay, I don't really get the Mandarin, but I understand the Taiwanese. So it does
That's
happen.
interesting.
It's not just the dramas.
Yeah. So when you go and like you're trying to talk to like let's say a shopkeeper or someone on the street or a parent of a kid or something, do you try in Mandarin first or Hokkien?
I do Mandarin first, just because at least in Taichung, just because most people speak Mandarin here, and sometimes I'm a little iffy about my Hokkien because I speak Philippine Hokkien, not Taiwanese Hokkien. But I know I was kind of expressing to my cousin that I I don't think it was Kate or was it? I don't know, but I Kate. But I think I was expressing like I felt kind of out of place. Like I felt bad that I didn't know a lot of Mandarin coming in, and at least everybody in my Taichung cohort is quite fluent. And she was saying, "Oh no, honestly, you should just assert your dominance and just start speaking Hokkien because you are fluent in it, and just make everybody feel bad." Okay, maybe I should do that. But I do try to speak Mandarin because that's something everybody speaks.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That I was in a kind of similar situation when I was living in India
Mhm.
where I had learned Hindi for many years.
Yeah.
And my Hindi is worse than my Mandarin. So at a certain time I was like almost like able to kind of have conversations and stuff and then it fell out. Anyway, so but I lived in an area of India where the local language was Marathi, so it was not Hindi. Um so a lot of people still spoke Hindi and English, but the local language was Marathi. So I would like learn a little bit of stuff and most of that's kind of gone out the window because I haven't had to use it since then, but I would try in Hindi first and then if they had difficulty understanding, I'd try to use whatever Marathi I knew and mixed with English. And some like combo of those three languages would kind of work out. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. Um
Oh, so did you learn Marathi there, or did you know a little bit beforehand coming in?
Nothing. I learned it there and I barely like learned anything. Like I just learned like certain place names and stuff. Like when you got there, there's a like kind of welcome to India class situation, and you took
Mhm.
that throughout your time there, even though it was like an internship study abroad thing. And I worked in an NGO, and then there was a class that you had to take, which was like Indian culture class, and like it was basically like how to live in India and like survive and stuff. So that class was awesome. There was only four of us in the entire program, so
Oh.
yeah, so we got spoiled with attention. Like it was awesome. And I stayed in a host family. I don't know what your situation was, but I was going to ask you about that. Oh, we got some new followers. I think Film Chill followed and Scumbag Davey. So thank you for following. We appreciate that. Um, but yeah, we can go into actually before we talk about your living situation. There's one thing I wanted to remind myself to ask you that I don't think
Yeah.
is in my notes. So what was it like after those 16 days to like enter into the world of Taiwan, like for the first time officially, like, oh, I'm cleared, I'm free, I could live. Like what was that
Yeah.
like that day?
Well, actually, so before we get there, 16 days was the hotel quarantine, but we still have
Oh.
a week of what we call in Taiwan a self-help management period. Um, so it's kind of we actually didn't get COVID tested until 20th day. Um, but so how it kind of worked was self-help management. We got moved to an apartment, and we, at least in Taichung, we quarantined with our the people who I was in the taxi with. So contact tracing would be easier. So I wasn't. I'll talk about my housing situation later, but I wasn't quarantined with my future roommate, even though we already knew who we would be living with. But we were quarantined in a the little taxi bubble. So technically, for self-help management, I mean, well, look, so the government for 16 days, I mean, including self-help management, they would kind of text you asking like how your symptoms are. And we had this really nice Asian, his name was Kevin. He called us like once a week just to check up on us and see how we were doing. Kevin,
And
if
they
you're
called you in
watching this,
English?
he talked in English. Yes, he
Oh,
talked
that's
in
great.
English. Yes, because a lot of us are foreigners, so we talked in English. But so for self-help management, it was kind of a gray area. I erred on the side of caution, but for that period, it's kind of like you could technically go outside. It's not a strict quarantine. Like I mean, we're quarantined with other people in our, but we so you could go outside. You have to wear a mask everywhere though. You could go outside, wear a mask. You could walk in the park, from what I heard. You could go to like a 7-Eleven, like a quick convenience store run, or if you wanted to. I'm not really sure about restaurants. If you wanted to order out and take it
Mm.
back home, you probably could, but you weren't allowed to go to places like the mall or crowded places you weren't really allowed to go to. Like, you
Yeah.
don't plan on going to a concert basically if you're in self
Yeah.
help. But I was just kind of iffy about it. Like, personally, I didn't leave the house at all. The only time I ever left the apartment was to meet up with the Uber Eats, or they use Food Panda here also. But the Uber Eats or Food Panda driver. And
Mm.
for that period, they gave us thermometers. We had to check our temperature every day. We had to record it in a Google sheet, and we had to list down every time we would leave the house or any interaction you would have at what time specifically.
Wow.
So I would say, oh, I met up with Food Panda driver at like 6:59 p.m. or give a time frame. So it was just kind of like I didn't want to go outside, and
Right.
I just felt like I would rather just, in case something happens, if I actually had COVID, like I don't want to be, case
Yeah.
752 like on the news everywhere. So yeah, so it was just wait, is there a comment from Philip? Always wanting to show support. Oh yes. Okay. But
We appreciate the
so
support.
we all appreciate the support. So I think it was an additional like a week. I was kind of in that self-help period.
Mm.
Um we got tested on 20th day, and it was a very intense process. This guy was in the full like PPE attire, was behind a glass door. There was a vent on top of us.
Yeah.
This event, it was very intense.
I saw
Very
that, I
intense.
think, on Did you take a video of it?
My friend took a video of it.
Yeah.
It's on my Instagram. If you scroll
Yeah.
down a little bit, you'll see how intense everything is. Like it was very.
It's
He had
very
to use a
safe there.
glove through a glass barrier to kind of like swab me. It was very intense. And we got our results the same day actually. So we were all holding our breath. Like my cohort, my Taichung cohort, we were together like on Zoom, just hanging out because we were so nervous for the COVID test. Because if we tested positive, we'd have to be sent back home.
Right.
So we were just also worried. And then the announcement came, and we were just so relieved.
No cases
We
in
had
your cohort?
not here, not in Taichung, but actually I would say all of Fullbright Taiwan. There was only one COVID case. Unfortunately, like she was hospitalized for a month. She had very low levels of COVID, but she was hospitalized for a month, and then
Oh,
unfortunately, her school she got better, but the school system there said no, we are not comfortable having her here, so she got sent back home.
wow.
So that's what I was worried about. So it does happen. I was worried about that.
Yikes.
Wait, what? Tell the story about how the guy got fined for. Oh, okay. So, it was so sad. I forgot how much he was fined. It wasn't at my hotel. I think it was just a Taiwan news in general. But some guy in quarantine. This is a side story from Kate Cruz reminded me. But there's this guy. Apparently, it wasn't coffee, but he left his hotel room because he wanted to get boiling water for his ramen, his instant ramen. He
Oh
was
no.
fined like 15,000 NTD or something. Like this poor guy.
Cuz he
So
like
it
went
was.
to the hot water dispenser in the hallway or something,
I think
and the
that's what
security
happened.
cameras got him. Oh wow.
Oh, it wasn't a security camera. I think it was just bad timing. Actually, it was just the patrol person was doing his rounds at that exact moment,
Wow.
so he was caught. From what I heard, it was just like they take it seriously here. It was just really painful to read. For like maybe $1 worth of ramen, you had to get fined so much.
So
Uh,
Yeah, they
That's
it sounds like they're very safe. Like extra cautious. So that guy you did shout out to Kevin. Hey Kevin, if you're watching, what's up? Um so that guy called you on the phone every day and like asked you
not
questions or
well, I think depends on what site actually, because my other Fulbright friends in different Taiwan sites, they were saying, "Oh, yeah, we got a call from this dude every day." But in my case, at least for Taichung, we got called once a week. So
okay.
just twice, basically. Just depends.
And they just ask you like, do you have a fever? Do you are you feeling any symptoms? Blah blah blah. Have you been
Yeah,
out in these types of places? Those kind of questions.
yeah, it was just very the generic questions. But when he didn't call, it was every day we'd get a text from the Taiwan Center, the Taiwan CDC,
Mhm.
just asking like what we're doing. We just sent one, no symptoms; two, cough, cold, fever; three, losing our sense of taste,
Right, right.
etc. But
So, I want to get into more of the cultural stuff about Taiwan, differences between Taiwan and the U.S., all this sort of stuff. But I'm still a little bit curious about the Fulbright program. So, like, how does that, like, what makes it a Fulbright program? Is that just like the organization, or is there certain things associated with that? Is it just for teachers, or is there other kind of focuses that they have as well?
yeah, so the Fulbright program, I mean, what makes it a Fulbright? Well, you have to apply to it. So, what I'm doing is the reason why I'm here is because I applied for the Fulbright program. But there are many different things you can do with it. I did the English teaching assistant one,
Mhm.
but there's like research grants that you can apply for, or I believe you could apply for a master's or PhD through Fulbright too. I haven't really looked into that, but there are many different things you can do through Fulbright, and I think the very core of it is just like cultural exchange. So it always like depends. It usually is just like them sending you to another country to either teach, research, or get your master's or do something. There's something with the fine arts too. I just haven't really looked into it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was like kind of curious about that. So that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So then now you're out of your extra 2 weeks self quarantine thing, right? And you're still
Yes.
going through your um like video call uh what's it called? I want to say inauguration. That's not the word. What word am I thinking of?
Orientation.
Thank you. Okay.
Orientation. There.
Orient yeah.
Inauguration. Ooh, the same
You're
time around the president. Yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe that's why I'm thinking that. Yeah, your orientation. So okay, so you're doing your virtual orientation. You get to know the other cohorts and your program directors. I'm guessing whatever.
Yes.
Okay, so then that period is over. Then what happens? Like after you're out of your
Yeah.
self. Okay, wait. So you're still in a hotel during that self isolation? Or are you in a different place?
Oh wait. So okay, 2 weeks of hotel quarantine, and then for the self help thing, it was in an apartment. Um,
Oh,
and we
okay.
lived with like the taxi bubble.
With like three other
Yeah.
people.
So it was Mhm. Yeah, it was three of us.
Oh,
So
three
two
people.
other
Okay,
people.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
So it was just a surreal experience to finally be out there.
Yeah.
I moved into my apartment after on the I think the 21st or 22nd day, and it was a Friday I think when our quarantine officially ended. Like no COVID cases in Taichung, yay! And I moved in, and Saturday was our first day out. So it was just we were gonna have like a welcome dinner that night. But the second year Fulbrighters who were already here, like who have been here in Fulbright, they got stuck in Taiwan. They were really nice. They said they planned like a little brunch for us. Like we met up earlier in the day, and it just felt so surreal, especially coming from someone who was at home for a moment back in the U.S.
Mhm.
Like I felt like I was overstimulated with
Yeah.
just all the sights and sounds. Like, oh, I and the bus on the way there was a little like shaky, but like I loved the feeling. Like, wow, I'm on a bus. This wouldn't
Yeah.
happen in the U.S. in this
Yeah.
pandemic. it was the weather was perfect. It was like 70 degrees back then. And I don't know, just seeing people around, just walking outside. I mean, technically, we didn't have to wear a mask really outside in certain areas, but so some people would wear it and some people wouldn't. But I mean, now it's a little different. I can get into that later. Kind of took a change this week, but at that time, it was just such an amazing experience. I went to brunch with friends without a mask on. Like that was just quite a. I haven't eaten in an indoor restaurant since like
Wow.
March of the year before, so it was just a really good experience. Like even I don't know, just being alive, being out
Right.
there.
So you have the new experience of being in a new country, and in addition, you also have the experience of, oh, I life is more back to normal than like what I was used to in America because of COVID quarantine. So you have this double like experience especially you went from like the quarantine in the US, yeah, but then you had
Yeah.
like the 2 weeks in a hotel by yourself, and then the 2 weeks in the apartment. Like, so you're like, okay, leveling up. Like, I was a Charmander, now I'm Charmeleon, and then you become the Charizard, and you're like, this is crazy. That must be a really interesting experience. Yeah, now that I think about it.
It was yeah something I don't know if I can relive. I hope I don't have to relive it again because that means I
Yeah.
would be in quarantine for like 9 months and then another
Right.
3 weeks. So it was a great experience.
And that and those like relaxed restrictions and stuff was due to like how very little cases there were in Taiwan because of how safe they were being, and how like they've like super prioritized like
Mhm.
contact tracing and all this sort of thing. Um so yeah, I mean that's, that's what you get. Also helps that there's less of a population. Um
Yeah, it helps too.
but okay, so then what about like kind of differences, like speaking about your experience in the US and in Taiwan, like what are, besides the the quarantine situation, just culturally, what were kind of the initial things that you were like, oh wow, this is kind of different? Like forgetting that there, obviously like the COVID differences.
Right, right. So yeah, COVID differences quite obvious, but for cultural differences, I would say I honestly didn't get that much of a culture shock coming in because I already lived in Asia half my life. So
Right.
I didn't get as much culture shock as I thought I would, but I think some cultural differences, like I guess in Asia, I feel like we're more I think in America, people are a little more blunt and straightforward, but in Taiwan, I feel like when I talk to locals, they they won't say no. I think they'll kind of
Right.
go find a way around it. Not like a very indirect way of saying no. But turning off. Oh yes. Another cultural difference too is it gets really hot here, but right now I think it's 100 something degrees. But I refuse to turn on my air conditioning. I think just because of the Filipino in me. Electricity is very expensive here, so I think what we don't have centralized AC
Hmm.
here. I'm not sure. It's a cultural difference, but I guess so. Maybe counts to one. So I
I
think
feel
a
like
lot of
in the
Taiwan.
US a lot of people, unless you're in an apartment.
Right, you'd have like centralized AC or
Yeah.
air conditioning. Yeah, so same with here, we only have, like, 1 unit,
Hmm.
at least in my room. I only started turning it on last night, but, um, it was just really hot, but, we'd usually I turn it on for, like, maybe 10 minutes and shut it off, so that's, I think, something that's quite
Right.
normal in Asia, but at least in some houses in the US, like, when I go over to my friends' places, it would just be running,
Hmm.
but just I think also the cost of electricity is just more expensive here. What did I can hear my dad yelling at me now about wasting money on energy for AC. Yeah. That's 30, yep.
Yeah, that's too much.
It's too much. Yeah, so that's one thing. Another thing also, oh, Taiwan. We a lot of, it's in Asia, we do a lot of scooter culture. It's a lot of you've probably seen it in India too, maybe, but
Yeah.
there are a lot of scooters here. That's kind of the way to get around. Uh, I don't drive in the US, so I don't even know how to bike. So that was not on
Oh,
my list. Yeah,
okay.
I never learned
So
to bike.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that actually, right? You were learning?
I
Yeah.
was practicing every night.
Yeah. So that's cool. So you didn't know how to ride a bike and you also don't drive.
Yes.
So you're like, all right, I'm not doing any of this stuff. You're gonna I'm gonna call and do they have Uber there or
There's Uber here.
okay.
But I at least for Taichung, there's like a pretty decent bus system here. So I usually hop on a bus and just go places. But my friends all know me as I love to walk. I'm very fortunate that I live in a very convenient area of Taichung. Because even once you get your your placement in Taiwan, you still have to figure out where you're going to be placed. And fortunately, I'm in kind of the city area, so it's more convenient. I
Right.
love walking everywhere. If I see that a bus is 25 minutes and walking is 30 minutes, I'll walk. Like I'm a walker.
Yeah.
That's why I hit my 10,000 steps a day quite easy. Oh, Kate said Olivia Rodrigo shaking. Yes, I don't have my driver's license. No, I do not have that. And we actually recently got an MRT line here in Taichung. And I'm very fortunate because I live
And that's the
7 minutes. So,
right?
okay, they say it's like a subway, but yes, I do walk very fast, Kate. My friends have told me I thought I walked fast until I met you. I walk very fast. I think I do have New Yorker vibes when I walk.
Yeah.
I
Same.
just my purpose. I walk with a purpose.
Right. Exactly. You're
But we
not
do.
walking fast, you're walking with purpose.
I do. Yeah, exactly, Kate. I don't walk fast. I just have a purpose. What? Gotta walk fast. Friends, what? Gotta walk fast, and all our friends are. Yeah, I am 5'1", so I think I walk fast to compensate for my height. I have my foot stride is not as much as my tall friends, so
Right.
I do have to walk quite fast.
It's like a
But Emerson,
Pomeranian being walked by their owner like
yeah, the little dachshunds that just go like
yeah.
that's me. uh, what? I
Tried
tried
walking her
walking
to
with her.
class didn't work.
Yeah, we went to school together. So sad, like time got cut short. But uh okay, I slowed down for you though, okay. I really tried. You just walk slow.
Okay, so
uh,
motorized scooters, like people owning motorized scooters, right? Is there also a like an app where you can hire like a scooter to come pick you up? Because I know in India they actually had that where you can get a auto rickshaw, you could get a car, or you could get a scooter to come pick you up. So did they have that like where you are? Or?
in the Philippines they have that, but in Taiwan I don't think so. Because you need to I don't know if it's the same in India, but the government requires that every passenger has a helmet. So
Ah,
I that just wouldn't happen. If you don't own a scooter, you most likely will not own a helmet. I mean, I have there's a spare that some of my friends have, so I keep it here. But um, I know on other sites like Kinmen, which is like a very small island off Taiwan. Long story, but I have a friend there who doesn't scooter, but she has her own helmet and she hitchhikes. So it's not exactly the safest thing. But
right,
there's no app really that can grab
right.
you a scooter.
Yeah,
I
that
just
makes sense.
I arrange with like my friends ahead of time. Like, oh, if you're scootering me over, I'll bring my helmet.
Mhm. Well, that's cool. Um, anything else kind of jump out at you from like U.S. culture between Taiwanese culture?
I guess
I'm
I'll get
curious because
into
I've
this.
never been there either, so
Yeah, yeah.
plan on it.
I think one thing that stands out. Yeah, you should definitely visit though. I love it here. Uh, well, traffic is bad. Traffic's very bad. I mean, I got used to it. But in the Philippines, but in the U.S., you know how pedestrians have the right of way. It's not the same here in Taiwan. I mean, I would be trying to cross a pedestrian lane when at my time, and a car would just kind of drive past me if they're taking a right turn. So clearly, not pedestrians are not the priority here, but that's fine.
Great
For
source is
other,
now
I think
loading.
for cultural
谢谢你的
differences, I
关
can
注。
speak more
Well,
about
thank
school
you, Gracie
systems
Arts, for
here.
following.
Hey!
I turned on the
Thank you.
alerts now. I didn't have it on this overlay, but I turned it on. So now we get notified. So thank you, Gracie Arts.
Nice. So Phil and Chill and Dave Scumbag, right? And
Yeah,
Grace. So
thank you.
awesome. Thank you, thank you. But yes, so in the Taiwanese school system is definitely different from the US. I didn't get so much of a culture shock just because I grew up in Asia, like I said. It's
Mhm.
quite similar to the Philippines, but kids in elementary, I feel like they're in school really for really long hours. They start their day at 7:30, and sometimes they end school at around 4. It just kind of, and we're talking like third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade. But I feel like in the US, I never went to elementary in the US, so I can't speak for that. But I feel like you start your school at 8:30, grab a pancake breakfast, and then kind of end school at maybe 2:30. But the school hours here are quite long, and I'm gonna butcher this, but they do have this thing called bushiban, which is a cram school. So after school, you get more school, kind of to. It's called a cram school. So basically, it's either catch up on lessons or do more advanced work. So there are a lot. I mean, I have this whole thing about it, but like there are kids who are super advanced, like super far ahead in their classes because they go to cram school. And it's just really sad because sometimes like on my way out of school I'll talk to my students like, "Oh, are you going home now?" "No, we're going to Wushiban." "Oh, okay, well, teacher Megan is gonna go home and sleep. Bye."
Yeah,
But they have more school.
I
So
think
there's that,
that's they have that in Korea too. I think it's
I
pretty
think.
common.
And Japan, I think, from what I
Mm.
know. That. The
I'm
Philippines, we
not too
had
well
something like
versed in that in the education systems of different countries, but
I think I'm pretty sure Korea and Japan have that. In the Philippines, a lot of us would go to like tutoring after
mm,
school, so
yeah.
quite similar. But I found it kind of surprising too that there's kindergarten cram school. Like, what do you do in a kindergarten cram
Mm,
school? So they really start their kids early here. I mean, if you can afford it, yeah, a lot of kids go to kindergarten cram
right.
school, which is kind of like what this is. You should be playing at daycare. I don't know what you're
Very
doing here.
competitive with education.
It's very cutthroat, I would say. I mean, I work at an elementary right now, just for context, but I know some Fulbrighters they work at a junior high, and junior high is kind of when things start getting stressful because you need to do well. That's when you actually need to do really well in school to
Hmm.
apply to a senior high, a good senior high, and then senior high you gotta do well to go to college, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's just very cutthroat here. Not like anything's right or wrong. I mean, obviously, there's different things about the U.S. education system that I'm not a fan of, but in Taiwan, I feel like there's more emphasis on academics. Whether, like, in the U.S., I started my high school at 7:45. We'd start our day, end at 2:30, and then we'd have time for activities, like clubs, extracurriculars, sports, till 4, maybe 6. But in Taiwan, it's very like academic focused, at least in elementary.
Right. So you teach English to elementary school students. Do you teach just like one class, or are there different difficulty levels of English that you're teaching? Or,
In
what's that like their ability versus like what level you teach?
Right, so it kind of depends on your site. That's why I think with Fulbright, you kind of don't. You need to be flexible, and you need to kind of know how to adapt situations because you don't really know where you're gonna get placed. In my case, so I teach from grades 1 through 6. There are other
Mhm.
people in my Taichung cohort that only teach like 1 through 3 or 4 through 6 or like kind of a weird mix of different grades. In my school, we don't really level the kids out. I just teach them per grade. I teach each class once a week, so I teach the entire school. I like that. I like that as setup. Um, I think it's just a little hard. I know in some other schools they kind of have like different levels per grade, English levels per grade. Which I mean, I feel like on one hand it's easier for the teacher to kind of target like learning abilities, but in kind of like from a student point of view. I feel like if you're placed in a lower level English class, you get quite self-conscious. So, but in my school, it's not like that. Except there's such a huge gap though between those kids who go to cram school and those who don't. So I think those who do know their English stuff, they're really, they're fluent, they know all the answers, and they make it seem like there's a full classroom engagement. But it's kind of something I'm struggling with is that just because some kids know and the loud kids know the stuff doesn't mean that everybody else knows. Because you could, I mean, if you talk to each kid one on one, like if I do kind of like a oral practice with
Right.
each kid in class, you can tell that there's some kids who are a little behind. So that's just kind of like the levels I'm facing with, because there's some second graders that talk to me outside of class in like full simple English sentences, and then I have some fourth graders who don't really know how to write their alphabet that well yet.
Mm.
So it's just quite there's quite a disparity there.
So there's a lot of adjustment. It's not really like you're in level 3 or level 5. It's just like you're in English class.
Yeah, you're in first grade English, you're in second grade English. First grade and second grade mostly just do the alphabet, but third grade, like sixth grade, they start getting more into grammar. So it's just, yeah, you just have to catch up to
Mm.
the level you're at in the grade. Like at least in my school.
But it's like basically what you're teaching is pretty beginner level English, you would say, right?
Yes, I would say junior high kind of gets into more of the more complicated stuff. Because in elementary, it's kind of like you don't really teach them. You just teach them English as like you teach them vocab, you teach them you do games, but you don't really get into the whys of grammar. You know how which is actually quite difficult to learn as a
Yeah.
second language. Um, because I don't want to explain to the kids, for plural nouns you add s, but for verbs, you don't add an s when it comes to plural nouns, and I don't really know why. I can't give them the why behind it. It just,
Yeah.
it just is.
Yeah, and that's something like I know, like when you said that, I'm like, oh, is that the thing? Like I know, like because I never had to think about it, I just
It's something you don't think
say
about.
it. Yeah, exactly. But you have to like think about how to, teach the rules of it, and
Yeah,
so do you
at
have
least in
like
junior.
your own? Oh, sorry, what?
Oh, that's more of a junior high thing, I would
Mm.
say. In elementary, you just kind of give them, you just tell them what it is. But junior high, I think you have to explain it to them. But yeah, go on. What were you saying?
So
Sorry, I cut
do
you
you
off.
make up your own lesson plans, or do you kind of follow what's given to you and kind of just adapt it a little bit?
Yeah, so I it depends on your school, and actually we teach with co-teachers in the classroom. So I teach with a local teacher for all of my classes, and I have three of them. Um, I think it depends on the school, like everything, depends on the school. But my school is very textbook heavy, which I kind of appreciated in the beginning because I'm quite new to teaching, so I did want to, go off a little bit on the textbook. But now I kind of want to go away from that, but it's okay. It kind of gives me a guide. So I usually use the textbook to teach, or at least to guide me. But like nowadays, I've been kind of planning my own lessons. I kind of don't use the textbook as much. I kind of try to figure out how to integrate, phonics or like vocab words to different like types of lessons. So for some classes, are more like I teach. Sometimes I lead the class a little more. Other times it's very equal, or sometimes I take more of like a assistant role. So it just depends on your co-teacher.
Cool. And I don't know if I heard you correctly. Did you tell me before that you had been to China as well?
Yes, I visited just twice. It's not like a whole
Just twice.
cultural experience. Just I've only been twice. Once when I was
That's
little. it's
but twice is more than some people. I've been
That's
twice too.
true. Oh, wait, where have you been in China?
So 2011, I was there for a 3 month Chinese language program in Beijing. And then
Oh,
in 2017, I was there for 6 months for a exchange program at Fudan University in Shanghai.
oh, okay. So Beijing and Shanghai. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice, nice. I went to both too.
So that
Yeah.
was, you said, like when you were younger, like when you were a kid, or
When I was a kid, I went to Shanghai and Xiamen with like one side of the family. They were both family trips. Yeah, Kate, you're watching. You know the Beijing trip. We went to Beijing in 2018, and I went to Shanghai like back in 2007. So I was really small.
right? Well, that's cool. So, what would you say were like, if you can kind of remember and like think about it, what were big differences between like mainland China and Taiwan? Was there, is there like a lot of differences, or is it largely similar culturally, or like what do you think? Because I've never been to
Let's see.
Taiwan, so
Right, right.
more about
Um,
China.
let's see. So I mean, in general, my experience in Taiwan is different from China because I'm living here alone. But China, it was like family trips and like
Yeah,
us running
a
late
little
for
different.
everything. But here, so I think in China, I think the biggest difference is traditional characters versus simplified characters.
Right.
Taiwan and Hong Kong, I believe, we still use the traditional
Yeah.
form of writing, right? But in China, and I think anywhere in the US, where if you learn Chinese, you learn the simplified version. So I think that was a struggle coming to Taiwan because I knew simplified a little bit. And me and my buddy Duolingo, he was teaching me more simplified characters.
Yeah.
He and I kind of drifted apart, but ever since I accidentally broke like my 200 something day streak, accidentally, I didn't want to go back. But so it was like a little difficult trying to read some of the traditional stuff here. And oh, in Taiwan too, something I would say is we don't use pinyin. Um, we use a system called Bopomofo. I think there's probably a more formal word way to call it. I think Juyin or
Juyin.
something like that.
Yeah,
Juyin. Yeah, I think Taiwan's the only place that does it. And I guess for
I
those
believe
of you who
so.
don't know, yeah, pinyin is the letters is written out. You can pronounce a character that way. But in Taiwan, we don't use pinyin. We use, I think each sound, phonic sound, is represented through a symbol,
Mhm.
and that's how kids learn how to speak, how to read Chinese. So,
Yeah.
like my first grade and second graders, when they write me like these cute little notes, sometimes I have to pass it on to my co-teacher because it's in Bopomofo. I can't
Yeah.
read that. So, and in a lot of our children's textbooks, you'll see a character and then like little symbols on the side that kind of don't really make sense to people
Mhm.
who don't know Bopomofo. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's one big difference I would say with China and Taiwan.
That's like, I know, for things that are in Japan, things that are geared towards kids, like some anime and manga and stuff like that, they'll have over the kanji, they'll have like hiragana,
Yeah,
which is
hiragana,
like
yeah.
one of their, or katakana, like their phonetic systems, because the kids don't know the kanji yet. And the kanji, if anyone doesn't know, are the like Japaneseified Chinese characters, you could say,
Yeah, they look very
basically, that they
similar to
use. Yeah.
Chinese.
And I mean, that the other thing is like, actually a lot of kanji was simplified from Chinese a long time ago into like a Japanese version of that character. So if you're going to get into like learning Chinese characters in their various forms, there's like, cuz sometimes I'll look at something in Japanese and I'll be able to read it in Chinese in my head, cuz the
Yeah.
characters are the same or similar. But then sometimes I look at a character, I'm like, this doesn't look like a real character. And then I'll look it up and I'll be like, oh, this is a Japanese variant. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's you can kind of read it, but it's not exactly the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. And like, yeah, for the, so also, if anyone doesn't know, pinyin, they use like the English letters to
Yeah,
represent
like
the,
a
yeah, the phonetic system. So it's very easy for like, well, it's not easy, but it's easier for like someone who knows English or Spanish or French or anything that uses that alphabet to learn Chinese that way. And in mainland China, they use that internally as well on the keyboards. Um, but yeah, so like Bopo Mofo or Chuyin, they use like different symbols that are From what I understood, like kind of derived from Chinese characters originally, but like
Yeah,
they're just phonetic symbols basically. So that's actually something that I always wanted to learn, but because I don't really need to, like I just never did, because I knew pinyin already. But maybe one day.
exactly. Yeah, but
Um,
I mean, it's really for the little kids who are just learning how to speak and read. I would like to learn it just so I can type out Bopomo because a lot of the keyboards in Taiwan are Bopomo.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
it would just be helpful that way. But I
yeah.
am already so accustomed to pinyin that it might be a little hard for me.
So something I'm curious about because I've
Mhm.
learned when I first started learning Mandarin, I started learning as a teenager in like basically heavily Beijing accent, Beijing Hua. So
Hard.
yeah. So that was like my first thing was like war war, like 你去哪儿啊? Like all
Hard.
that
Yeah.
what they call our Hua or like our language. So and in addition to like this standard Mandarin, right? But like all Mandarin learners in America pretty much or in the West, I'd say, like they learn like
Mhm.
standard Mandarin with like some Beijing dialect in there. And then as I kind of developed more, I started like doing different schools where they would start teaching traditional characters and simplify at the same time, and they'd start throwing in Taiwanese specific Mandarin phrases in addition to like the Beijing Hua and standard Mandarin. So like I know of some kind of differences that exist, right? So like I'm I'm wondering what like what do people really say the differences is basically what I'm asking. So for example, there's the
Mhm.
word for garbage. So I know
Yes.
in standard like Dalu, like mainland China Mandarin, garbage is 垃圾, but
Oh.
I've heard that in Taiwan they say 垃圾.
Lasa, yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
lachi does not right. Lasa. And I think for pineapple, do they say bolo
菠萝,
in
菠萝.
bolo? We say fengli in
Yeah.
Taiwan.
Yeah.
Something like
There's a
that.
lot of little differences. I'm trying to remember like um
Yeah.
all of them. There's like they
I
just come like I can't like remember any specifically. Just the Lusa was the one that stood out. Or oh yeah, so taxi also is different.
I forgot what it is
Right?
here, but
出租车
it's not in
in
China.
Mandarin. In mainland Mandarin. But it's something else. It's like it's something that sounds like the English word.
I know because I learned Duolingo taught me that in Mandarin. But in Taiwan, I've never heard him say that.
Here, I'm
Um,
looking it up. I'm too curious
I'm
about
looking at
this.
it too.
Wait. I Taiwanese Mandarin.
出 去车 no.
Okay,
Why
here
is it
we
not?
go. There's some
计程车
yeah.
计程车
Oh yeah,
I think.
another thing is the name of Mandarin. It's different. Like
Do you call it, yeah.
wait, what?
Do you call it 中文
Well,
normally?
中文
Or
that's just Chinese, but Mandarin's like specifically 普通话. In mainland China it's like 普通 is like a average person, like average, like a basic, like a how do I describe it? Like the basic language, like
yeah, 普通话. Yeah. I
common,
no one calls
ordinary. But in Taiwan they call it 国语,
we
which is
call it
like
国语 here.
national language.
Mhm. We don't use 普通. We don't call it 普通话. I
Right.
forgot about it. That just unearthed like a memory for me. I haven't used 普通话in so long. It's 国语 here.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff we could get into, like all the nitty gritty, but that's a lot. Is anything like stand out in particular that are like specifically Taiwanese phrases? I was like curious
Um,
about that because I'm a language nerd.
yeah, I would say the most common Taiwanese phrase is 讲爸爸, which is have you eaten yet? And it's a greeting.
Oh,
It's like saying, "How are you?" You would just
Right.
say, "Well," because we Taiwanese people, we love our
吃饭
food.
了没?
That's
Right.
that's kind of like the most basic phrase you can learn in Taiwanese, I would say.
Right. Yeah. Um, so talking about differences, I know that 夜市, the night markets, that's a big
Yes.
part of Taiwanese culture, which I'm very excited to explore one day because um I was really really digging the night markets in Malaysia. In another
Mhm.
podcast, I was talking to my friend Hitan about like the night markets in Malaysia and the whole food culture of that they call mamak. So I was wondering, like, have you experienced the night markets in Taiwan, and what was your experience like with those? Because I really really want to go to one of those one day.
Oh, I night market's such a huge thing in Taiwan. I absolutely love night markets. That's my love language. Bring me to a night market. Um, it's it's very uh I live actually close to a one of the biggest night markets, if not the biggest night market in Taiwan, called Fengjia.
Oh, okay.
It's the most popular one in Taiwan, in
I've
Taichung,
heard of that.
at least. Yeah, yeah. It's I live like a 30-minute I say 30-minute walk. Yes, you could take a bus in 17 minutes, but I don't like waiting for the bus. I'm just gonna walk. So I live
Yeah,
very
17
close to
minutes is
it.
not bad.
So it's not bad, 30-minute walk. I mean, in this
Oh,
heat,
oh, 30
maybe
minute walk.
30-minute walk.
17-minute
But
bus ride.
or 10-minute bus ride.
Okay,
Depend if
okay.
you catch the bus right, if you catch the bus right on time. But sometimes you have to wait like 10 extra minutes or 15 minutes for the bus to come. But it's it's an experience. There's just so many different foods. I think each night market's a little different, but Fengjia's more of there's more I think Taiwanese food there, or because some night markets are more international, they have more international dishes. But
Hmm.
Fengjia, I feel like I don't know, I feel like it's a good mix. A lot of seafood, get a lot of sweets. I like to
Hmm.
get the strawberries with like condensed milk. I like to get like there's a duck bao there. It's kind of like a duck burrito. For those you don't know, it's like a bao with duck meat inside. It's really good. You can get it for relatively cheap. I think some people say night market food isn't really the cheapest thing here, though.
Oh, interesting.
Especially at Fengjia, it's such a tourist spot that I think
Hmm.
you could definitely get cheaper food elsewhere. But considering Taiwan versus US prices, it's still relatively cheap. And there's like so much. I think the way to go by night markets though is I like to go with friends and we just split like each different food. Like so you want to try everything. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
like dish with everybody, you split each dish with your group. So that kind of makes it cheaper that way and you get to try more. Um I would say night market clothes is the way I like to buy like my Like I like to buy my clothes at the night market because
Hmm.
it's just cheaper. And they have a
Do
lot
you
of
have
nice
to look for
outfits.
prices?
I feel like it's not as common in Taiwan.
Okay.
In the Philippines it would be, but in Taiwan I feel like I haven't really haggled here. I probably could, but with my broken Mandarin, I'm not getting anywhere.
Do
So
you think that a lot of Taiwanese people speak like good English, or is it not very common in your
I would say
experience?
Taipei, you would have an easier time getting around with English. In Taichung, it's kind of. I think some people do speak English. I think as someone who looks like a local, everyone thinks I'm a local when they see
Hmm.
me until I open my mouth. But so I think everyone just assumes I can speak Mandarin right from the get go, and I think if you definitely look like a foreigner, like they will try to speak English, or some of them get like really scared because they're like, oh wait, I don't speak it. But I have a lot of like foreigners, like my white Goran friends. A lot of them do speak Mandarin, but I would say it's just in Taipei it's much easier to get around. But when it comes to things like the bank or hospitals, I kind of struggled um
Mm.
trying to it's very they don't really speak English. Yeah, so it just kind of depends what you're trying to do, where you go. More touristy areas, like when I did like a bubble tea making workshop with chun shui tang, which is like the origin of bubble tea. I mean, shout out to Taiwan for inventing bubble tea. But so we did a workshop there, and they asked us, "Oh, do you want this in English or Mandarin?" So kind of, I think more touristy things you can definitely
Right.
something in English, but for everyday stuff that would be a little difficult.
So yeah, so a lot of people might not know. I did a. It's always like the yeah sure the night market's always ingrained in my mind because I had like a whole chapter on it in this intensive Chinese school I did. So it was
Oh,
like it was like the Taiwanese night market. I was like, yeah, like you can
yeah.
buy, you know, pets, you could buy clothes, you could buy.
You can
So
buy
it's like,
everything.
yeah, inyo jinyo. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever they got, you can buy.
You can buy it. Night markets are so huge here.
Yeah, so it's like a kind of they open up at night, right? That's what I
Yeah, that's why it's a night market.
In the daytime, what does it look like? Is it just like an empty parking lot or is it like are there food stalls there but they're boarded up or what's the kind of the deal?
Yeah. I think it depends on the area because there's some night markets that are in a parking lot, so they'll close the parking lot at night and they'll set up in the afternoon.
Right.
But I think
It's
for
like in
Fengja, if you
Malaysia was a lot of those were like that.
oh, parking lot markets. I haven't run into one yet in Taiwan, but it's mostly just like they just look. I mean, it's a still Fengja isn't a busy area, and quite close to a couple of big establishments. Like there's the stationery store I really love, so I go there a lot. But it's a lot of just closed stalls. And then one like some of them open a little earlier, like at 4, so you could find some food at around 4. But for the most part, it's just like, closed up stuff. But there is a night market, I would say, in a night market in a district called Fualien, and it's they're kind of open the entire day actually, but there's more selection at night.
Right.
So just depends on where you go.
Is it like open all night until dawn kind of thing or do they like close at midnight or what's the deal with that? Do you know?
Yes. I think some night. I mean, sometimes on Google Maps you'll see like they close at 10. So I
Right.
think like or 11. Some go to like 2 in the morning though, but it just that's what it says on Google Maps, but it just depends on the vendor.
Right.
Like sometimes they close up earlier or they want to open later. So you kind of have to time it right. Like I'm a regular at the duck bow place and I know on Tuesdays they don't go for some reason. Like night market's open, but if you're looking for something specific,
Right.
you have to really know the
Yeah.
place.
You got to have a regular spot and know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of that, what is your like favorite food that you've had while in Taiwan?
Oh. I knew this question was coming, but I still can't decide. Okay, so my favorite food, I think just I don't know, being Connecticut, there's like next to no good like or no good cheap Asian food. I know New York, Boston, Chicago, they'll have more selection, but Connecticut's kind of, I mean, in my opinion, a little hard to find stuff. So coming to Taiwan was just food central. Everyone loves food here, and it's quite cheap. Like I think what you said in the beginning, yeah, your friend was right. You could get cheap food here. I mean, I would say though, some you could either get food for like a meal for $3, or sometimes you could get it for quite expensive. Just depends on what you're looking for. But
Mhm.
when I mean expensive though, when I see something that's like 300 NTD, that's and 200 Kwai, I think that's expensive. Like, ooh, that's expensive, but it's really only $10.
Right.
And in the US, you pay like 15, 17 for a meal. But in Taiwan, let's see, I like dessert wise, I like feng li soup, which is a pineapple cake, a Taiwanese pineapple cake. I don't know if you had it before, but it's
I
like this.
haven't.
Okay, I have it in my kitchen. I just want to leave and get it, but I bought a box yesterday because I was feeling a little stressed, so I'm gonna get a whole box. But it's like pineapple jam inside of like a cakey mixture. It's really good. It's a popular snack in Taiwan.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's really good. I like their beef noodle soup's really good in Taiwan too. I think it's getting a little hot, so I haven't gotten it in a bit, but it has a very distinct flavor. They are also known for their mian xian, miso and Hokkien. It's like a very thin noodle, thin rice noodle, I believe. It's really good. My grandmother mothers would make it during like everyone's and during people's birthdays. That's kind of what we would have,
Mm.
at least in Philippine Hokkien culture. What else? Wait, do you know stinky tofu? Cao tao
Chou
hu,
tofu.
cao tofu,
Yeah.
cao tao hu in Taiwanese, cao tofu in uh, Mandarin is a very controversial topic among like
Yes,
people
yes,
who like
yes.
it and don't. Have you tried it?
I'm not the biggest fan. There's ones I've tried that haven't been as bad as others. And then
Right.
there's like I don't know if it's technically stinky tofu, but in uh
Oh,
in Yunnan province, I was traveling there once and we were given this stuff for free that was like this fermented really it smelled a lot, but it was like not normal stinky tofu. It wasn't like it I don't even know what it was, but that was like I don't know what it was, but it was so bad. And it made I spit it out and my dad and my best friend who I was traveling with at the time, they actually ate it and they got so sick. So I have no idea what
oh,
that was. I don't know if that was a kind of sticky tofu. It wasn't like the normal kind. It was like
interesting. 'Cause I
dark
yeah.
colored and it was weird. Anyway, so
Yeah.
I since then I'm like I'm not taking any chances since that, but I know it's very popular with some people.
Yeah, I do understand that. No, if you've gotten sick of something that was like sticky tofu, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But I think the fried ones are better. I think among those who've kind of been on the fence of it. For those of you who don't know what stinky tofu is, you will when you get to Taiwan. You will
Yeah.
smell it and you will know. You'll know what it is. I like it. I've only had the fried ones though, but it doesn't taste like it smells, I would say. Um, I
Um,
think or at least the ones I've had, I or at least the fried ones definitely aren't as stinky. So if that's something you want to try, that's to get yourself back into stinky tofu culture. The fried
Stinky
ones aren't
tofu
as
culture. Oh yeah, I found I'm on Google Images here. There's definitely a couple different types. And this like black
okay.
kind with like the peppercorns or the pepper stuff in it. That's the one that my dad and friend got sick out of. The brown colored one I've had and I was fine. So I don't know if you've
Okay,
ever
I've had
seen
the
the one that's black.
no, I have not. I've only had the brown ones.
Yeah, because I just did an image search and yeah, this
I
was
I haven't
definitely
tried
black.
the. I'm a little worried now. You said your dad got sick of it. Uh, but you know,
So sticky
there's
tofu,
like
you like it? You're a fan?
I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
Nice.
Quite controversial take in Taiwan. If you don't, I mean, if people don't like it and people do.
Right.
So
Was the first
I
time
like it.
having it in Taiwan?
Yeah, actually, I haven't had it in China when I was there, and we don't really have it in the Philippines. So
Hmm.
it was my first time here. Yeah, I liked it. It was a good flavor.
Yeah. It's the normal one. The sticky tofu that's brown is not that bad. It's like I
Yeah.
think it's more psychological for people. But the black variety that I just saw in Google Images, I don't know what type that is. That one is a little different. That's pretty intense. I'd say don't try that one
Yeah.
first. Work your way up.
Yeah. If you want to start, do the brown ones or the fried ones are
Yeah.
a good place to start. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then as of drinks, like, would you say like boba is your go-to drink, or is there something else that takes the title for the favorite
Well,
drinks in
for
Taiwan?
um, such a Taiwanese thing. Like in
Right.
every corner you go to, there's at least like a couple of boba shops.
Mm.
Or tea shops in general. Like around I know I tell myself I need to try other boba stalls, but there's just one for the corner of my house. It's quite cheap. So after school, I would like, oh, I want to try something new. Then I just end up going to that boba store. It's very popular here in Taiwan. Obviously, like we invented it. My city invented it. Very proud. I take pride in that.
You're starting to own it. You're like, we invented it. My city
I really
invented it.
invented my city.
Getting that
So
yeah.
but I really like Hongta. I like black tea in Taiwan. I never really liked it in the US. I mean, I was always more of a green tea person, but in Taiwan, they just make their Hongta a little different. I don't know.
Is
Uh,
it milk tea typically when you drink
no, I just
Hongcha, or is it
no, just regular tea.
oh
It's you usually get them at a breakfast place. So when I go get I'm probably butchering it, but danbing, which is kind of like a
oh yeah.
Asian omelet. It's really good. I always get like Hongta. I get black tea with it. So
And
it's
for
not
the
really
non-Mandarin speakers, in Chinese they actually call black tea red tea. That's what
yeah.
Hongcha
That's
means.
Hongta. Hong is red.
Yeah, but in English we call it. That's what we know as black tea.
And they call brown sugar heitang, which is it translates to
Black
black
sugar. Yeah.
sugar. I don't really know why. It's like an interesting quirk.
Yeah. Okay, so as far as boba goes, what's your go-to flavor and ratio? Everyone's got their own ratios, like less
Yeah.
ice, more boba, like taro, or like, what's your drink? What's
Mm,
your go-to?
I always go like consistently. I go for wei tang wei bing, which is like 25% sugar, 25% ice. I
Hmm.
just like more of the tea. Like I want the tea flavor. That's why I go for less sugar.
That's
I know
pretty much
some
my
people,
go-to.
yeah, there are people who do 100%, and I don't know how.
What
Uh,
about boba level?
well, I don't know if you can really ask for a boba level here. It just kind of,
Oh,
if they just, it's just kind of a ratio. So you either get zhongbei, like which is
mhm,
like medium size, or dabei, which is the big size.
right.
So they do the ratio for you. I mean, you could probably ask, but probably at extra charge maybe.
Okay.
Other than that, I try to branch out. I think in the US, I was more of a milk tea person. I like my matcha, my Thai
Yeah.
tea. But here, I think especially since it's been getting hotter, I try to do more of the fruit teas or like
Mhm.
oolong or just the regular teas because it's just been so hot. I just want something refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely like more refreshing. You get like the fruitier ones, or not as milky. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like a
What's
lot of
yours?
different types, like a lot of different flavors. Taro is like good taro is really good. But if it's not
Yeah.
great, it's like, like
Yeah.
bad taro is pretty bad.
Yeah, so it's like a hit or miss, I think. But if it's good, it's really good.
I love the matcha. I like the basic milk tea, but I don't like a lot of milk and I don't like a lot of sugar in that. Um
Mhm.
yeah, I like a lot of different flavors. Some like but the thing is, like, I feel like I don't know if you do this. When I get more of like the fruity thing, I prefer like grass jelly than boba.
Oh, okay.
Like
Yeah, actually,
it's more like goes with the fruit, I feel like.
you're right. No, I think I just don't know the word for it in Mandarin, or I blank whenever I go to
Mm.
a stop, so I end up just getting boba. But especially since I heard about the boba shortage in the U.S., so
Oh,
I've been drinking more boba here.
that's so funny. You're like, well,
But I think it's better with the fruit stuff.
yeah. You're like better them than me.
I know. Well, I'm gonna get my boba. Sounds like a you problem.
um so we talk about food, which we have to talk about food. We probably end up talking about food more later, but I was
Yes.
just wondering if, since you were talking about like making boba, like making bubble tea as like an activity, were there any other kind of activities that you ended up doing, or unexpected things, like like maybe some locals are like, oh, come with us, we'll do this thing, and you're like, what? Oh, I never expected to do that, or anything like that, or I'm just curious because I feel like there's always something that you never expected to do when you when you're living abroad for a while, you're like start doing things that you never thought you'd be doing.
Right. Yeah, so a couple of things. I feel like if you didn't like hiking before coming to Taiwan, you're forced to like hiking because everywhere is just
Yeah,
I don't know. I
that's
feel
what I
like
heard.
every weekend it's like, hey, do you want to go for a hike? Like, okay, fine. I mean, not that I don't like hiking. It's just that everyone in Taiwan loves to hike.
It's very
So there are a
mountainous.
lot. Yeah, it's so I didn't really think I would get super into it. I usually only hike in the fall in the US because that's when it's really pretty. But in Taiwan, it's just they're hiking. There are a lot of hiking trails like in Taichung, called the Dakong hiking trails. It's kind of far from my place, but if you get there by scooter, it's not too bad. I ended up doing the hardest one because my friend visiting from Zhanghua, another county below us, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to visit Taichung this weekend. Do you want to go for a hike in Dakong? Let's do the hardest one because I want to do the hardest one." I didn't think I would do it because it's all just logs. It's a broken stairmaster. You have to like balance yourself on these logs going up. But not all trails are like that. I would say in Taiwan, a lot of like the popular trails are paved. Whereas in the US, they're not really paved, I don't think. But I think some it hasn't happened to me yet, but apparently some people have gone on trips like with their co-teachers. I mean I have, but when they went hiking, they kind of brought a lot of food with them and like cooking materials, and they would just go to a mountain and cook and eat. Like they wouldn't really hike all the way. They would just
Right.
eat, with a very
Like a
Taiwanese thing
little
to do.
barbecue picnic thing.
Yeah, so they didn't go
Yeah.
very far up the mountain, but they would use it to kind of be like a picnic experience from what I've
Be in
heard.
nature and eat,
Exactly. I think it's a
which I
good
understand.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another big thing in Taiwan too, KTV, karaoke.
Yeah.
Uh, Such a big thing in Asia, but I think especially in Taiwan, um, they even have those. I mean, I'm not sure in the US. I feel like when you say karaoke, people kind of get the impression that oh, it's like a bar, and then
Right.
you go
Bunch of
on stage and
strangers.
yeah, it's not like that in
Yeah.
Taiwan. I think it's more if you rent a room with your friends and like you get drinks, you get like food if you would like, and you all just sing in a room together. And there are some areas in the mall, there are these karaoke booths for like
Yeah.
one or two people. Yeah, have you
Yeah.
seen those in China?
I've seen them in China. Yeah. It's like a phone booth, but they have like
Yeah.
karaoke in there. It's awesome. I
People
love it.
get really into it. I think if you're just in your fields, you just go pay like 50 kwai or something for a song and sing out your whole heart. It's really interesting to walk by. Maybe I should do it if I ever feel having a bad day. Maybe I that's what I need.
I no, honestly, I regret never doing that when I was in China. There's a mall right by my apartment. And like you walk through it, it's like underground thing to get to the subway. And it's like part of the mall. And they had those booths there, and like I was always like, on the go. Oh, like your Instagram. and
Yeah.
it's so and so I would never like have whenever I was passing it, it'd be like when I was going to or from the subway, and like so I never went in, but I think you should do it because I regret it. I regret not going into the KTV booths. But yeah,
That's a good part.
that's one of the things I miss actually is about living in China is karaoke because yeah, in America and in probably a lot of the places in the West, quote unquote, like yeah, karaoke is like a karaoke bar, meaning they have karaoke nights certain days of the week, and then there's like a whole big bar with a bunch of people, and like you write down your song request and your time, and then you go up in front of all of these people, some you know, some you don't, and you sing, and that could be fun. That could be interesting for sure. But I really got used to like you're saying it was like such a big social thing in living in China and in I feel like in Asia in general a lot of the time in East
And
Asia at least.
Filipinos love to sing too,
Yeah.
so yeah.
That's what I had a lot of Filipino friends in China. There's like a big group of Filipino friends that I had like we'd always hang out together and we go to karaoke and there would be a lot of fun and they would always say like Filipinos love singing, they love karaoke and blah blah blah.
Love the
It's like,
karaoke.
yeah, I loved it. It was I love that crew. But anyway, shout out to you if any of you are watching. Um, but anyway, where was I going? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So Chinese KTV, I feel like is very specific because I also went to karaoke when I visited Korea, and
Uh-huh.
in New York City, near where I live, there's Koreatown, where you can go and do karaoke there. I don't know if Megan, you've ever gone to Koreatown in Manhattan and
I have,
checked
but
out.
not.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's similar, but it's not quite the same. Like they have these specific touch screens I was used to in China, and like they
Uh-huh.
had a lot more Chinese songs and stuff. And like you go in America, it's
Yeah.
they have a lot. There's not really a lot of Chinese KTV places in America, even in like big cities. I feel like so it's mostly like Korean. I feel like maybe some Japanese. I don't know, but that's my
Okay.
thing. I'm like I miss the Chinese KTV specifically.
Got it, got it. Okay. I don't really go to KTV much in the US. It's not a big social thing there, so I think that's why I never really get roped into it. But
Yeah.
oh, okay. That's interesting. No, there's very specific. Yeah, I would say in Taiwan, well, at least for us, we don't really know a lot of Chinese songs, so we try to find a place that has like a good amount of English songs. And it's still possible, but yeah.
So that brings me to another question I'm curious about. Like comparing my experience studying abroad in China twice, and basically it was difficult for us even though we were in Chinese language programs, two separate times. It was difficult for us foreigners, and we're from all over the world,
Yeah.
to make friends with Chinese locals. That was very difficult. It was the college that we were at in Fudan was kind of almost like segregated. Like the foreign students were all in like one building basically, and all in these specific floors, and they only had classes with each other. And it was like very difficult to kind of meet Chinese friends. I don't know if like you had, like I only had a couple people that I really actually became friends with that were like locals when I was living in China, like both times. So I was wondering if you made a lot of friends because I know you have a Taiwanese co-teacher with you, right? So
Yes.
do you get close to them, or have you made any of like local friends and hung out with them a lot?
Yeah, so I would say Taiwanese people, like, they're very friendly. So like it's really easy to kind of make friends here. I'm quite close to my co-teachers. Like one of them invited me to their Lunar New Year dinner. As of like so that was really sweet of them, and I kind of met like her whole family, and they took me on a couple of other trips after that. And in fact, one of them kind of yeah, she lives in a different area of Taiwan, actually, but by the airport, Hualien. She lives in that district, and yeah, they took me around. Her kids call me Jie Jie, which is like older sister in
Yeah.
Chinese, so like really cute. And I did meet a couple of Taiwanese friends like a couple of months. I haven't seen them in a while, but they just saw like one of my keychains on my bag and they thought it was really cute, and then we just started talking from there. So Taiwanese people are just very friendly, I would say, and I guess also part of me is like I get quite involved in like communities, so um I do a lot of volunteering, and then people, they just love to add people each other online. So that's kind of how we end up connecting and meeting outside of meeting outside of like whatever we're doing. So I would say like, it's quite easy to make friends in Taiwan. Just kind of depends on what you're looking for.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you actually are able to do volunteer work there in addition to teaching. So like how did you find out about those volunteer opportunities? Was it through like your program or the school or just looking?
Um, So I would say for when I volunteered at the library to do either like cultural sharing or like storytelling for the kids, it's what previous Fulbright ETAs have kind of recommended to me. So
Oh, that's
I just
cool.
got in contact with the person in charge. I think a lot of it is a lot of previous ETAs like telling me, or our coordinator letting us know
Mhm.
what events are up. So I did some volunteering at a dog shelter, like in Taichung. That was fun.
Oh, cool.
Uh, and like Fulbright does have some opportunities too. At least every year for Fulbright Taiwan, they have this huge community service event at Sun Moon Lake, which is like kind of in the middle of Taiwan. You
Hmm.
Since it's kind of like a popular community service event, people get selected through lottery because there's like they can't really choose who gets to go. So fortunately, I was chosen this year, and we just taught English kind of at an Aboriginal school. It was like a whole month long planning event, but it was just so much fun.
That's
So it kind of
cool.
just depends on what you're looking for. You can definitely find stuff online, but because I have those connections, like might as well just use them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like I yeah, I wish I kind of had that experience more when I was in China. When I was in India, I was very involved with the community. I was living there like only 2 months versus the 6 months. Like I went from India to China in 2017.
Oh,
So I was in Asia like over 8 months total. So it was very, very different experiences because one, I was like working in an NGO, like as kind of an internship as part of like my education because it was for my human rights minor. Um, so it was very different because you were very engaged with the organization and with the community and even like the people in the program. They're like they'd hang out with you and like all this stuff. So that was very different, like going from that to like in China where it's like a big, huge college and all the foreigners were kind of put together in all the same classes. Um, I think that had something to do with it too. Like you're more involved in the community just by being a teacher in general, right? So that definitely helps. And that you have to like have your co-teacher with you and you get that more
mhm.
experience. So that's another thing I think if anyone's out there looking to like go to Asia or go anywhere in the world and they want to integrate into the community, I think it makes a difference kind of how you like what kind of trip you're going on, right? I mean also though like the culture, I've heard that like people in Taiwan are super friendly,
They are.
easygoing, like very easy to like strike up a conversation with and so that probably helps too. And the people in China were amazing, but I just unfortunately I didn't have those kinds of opportunities as much. We were focused on studying. Um,
Right. It depends on the nature of the program too
yeah.
to kind of like shape your experience there.
Um, and you mentioned like Aboriginal people in Taiwan. I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but there in addition to like the Taiwanese people who are like Chinese people living in Taiwan of like Chinese descent. There's also like indigenous people that were there, before the Dutch, who were like the first
Yeah.
settlers, and before the Japanese, and before the Chinese. Um, so, like, what was your experience like with that culture? And I know there's apparently there's 10 different tribes, and apparently one tribe intermarried with the Chinese people a lot. So there's kind of like just nine. Um, that's another thing they taught us in the Chinese school that I never forgot.
Interesting.
um,
They taught you that? Okay. I didn't
yeah,
know
we
that.
went into like all we had. Oh, here, I'll show you this book. We had this was like our advanced Chinese. 今日 Taiwan, Taiwan today.
Oh, so it's really specifically like Taiwan.
Yeah, the whole book is all about Taiwan, and I'm
Oh,
reviewing this right now too. So I'm like, this all
also
this
is
is
that
on the
one?
brain.
Oh, because you said you learn a little like of Taiwanese like Mandarin specific things. Okay, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so and Taiwan has a very complex history. Like I was trying to read up on it like during quarantine, like here, and I still don't understand a lot of it. But yeah, so there
Looks like
are,
Kingdom
I
is saying
believe, hmm,
today's Taiwan in Chinese right there.
yeah,
Well, not fellow, a proud person of Taiwanese descent right there. My good friend. Anyway,
right? Yeah.
Sir David.
But there are 16 tribes, I believe, in Taiwan. From what I've
16.
heard, 16.
Wow.
Yes, I'm looking right now. I knew it was more than 10, I believe.
Okay. Maybe
But
this info's
no, it's okay. I'm just looking it up because I'm not quite sure.
maybe I
I would
probably
say,
forgot the real number.
yeah, I think it's 16. Um, yes, they're all around Taiwan. I would say I don't get to interact with the community as much, I mean, with the Aboriginal community as much living in a city. They're definitely more out in the rural areas. So, um, with other Fulbrighters, they do teach at Aboriginal schools like regularly. That's what school they're assigned to, and just depends on where you're placed.
Hmm.
So I think in my case, I'm more from the city, but out in
Right.
Taidong, for example, which is or Hualien, which is the other side of Taiwan, like the east
Hmm.
side, I think they do get to teach more in those schools, and they're very small schools. Oh, so there's a question. I don't really know Aboriginal lingo, just because I don't get to interact with them on a daily basis. But I heard from other Fulbrighters who work in those schools, they do get to learn the local language too. So that's pretty cool. Like each one has their own like dialect. So it's quite interesting. I At the school I worked at for my volunteer thing, they taught us a little bit, but I kind of forgot it, unfortunately. But yeah, it's like their schools are typically smaller. So I worked the school I volunteered at for that weekend. That school had a total of 24 students. Um,
Wow.
I had three third graders, like four third graders, and one fourth grader in the class I was teaching. So quite small and comfy. Yeah.
Wow. So I'm just curious. Is in Taiwan, do they have to learn English? Is that like a mandatory subject, or is that an option of a foreign language?
It is mandatory, I would say. I ask my kids, "Oh, what's your favorite subject?" And they're like, "Oh, English." I'm like, no, you're just saying it because I'm asking you. But I know, because Taiwan's planning to become, they want to become bilingual by 2030. So, in a
Okay.
lot of schools, actually, they will be teaching some certain classes, like they call them bilingual classes. So at least in my school, the art and the PE classes are bilingual classes,
Wow.
like they'll teach it in English. So they're really trying to reach that goal by 2030, but I'm not sure if everyone can get there by 2030 because it just depends like the fundings and stuff. But so I would say it's a other than Mandarin, they learn
Mhm.
Taiwanese, and they learn English. At least they're trying to integrate that more.
Yeah. And I know some of the older generation know Japanese really well. Um,
Right. Yes,
yeah.
we're a Japanese colony for a bit.
Yeah, because I one of my teachers at the program where that book comes from, she's actually the head teacher of my level I was in. She would tell us about how she, growing up, they learned Japanese and um, Mandarin. So
No.
I remember a couple of times she accidentally spoke Japanese, like in class, and she's like, "Oh," so that was interesting. Um, yeah, so like definitely interesting. I didn't know that they were trying to be bilingual. Maybe they mean for the younger generation. I'm guessing, right? Like,
Younger generation now
yeah,
in school. Older generation, it's definitely it's more difficult. But with a younger generation, lots of schools are teaching English, if not all.
yeah.
Actually, that's why. I mean, next I actually did reapply for another year. But I unfortunately I cannot stay in Taichung because apparently we have too many foreign teachers here. So it just kind of shows that
Oh,
they really are trying to push for bilingual education. Yeah.
do you have any idea where you might be reassigned?
Oh, I already know. Well, I always have to put a disclaimer, assuming everything goes well, because with COVID, it's very hard. I feel like anything could happen at any moment. But at the moment, I'll be placed in Kaohsiung, which is a big city too, down the southern Taiwan. So
Mhm.
I'll be a little further from Taipei, but not like I've only been in Taipei once actually, my whole time here. But I'm excited. There's not one, but two MRT lines there, so I'm excited to use them.
Um, so I know, like before, we were talking about chou tofu, the sticky tofu.
Yes.
So I was just wondering. what your favorite smell or most memorable smell was. I'm curious if it was the stinky tofu or if there's another smell, not necessarily your favorite. I should rephrase it. Most memorable smell. Like, is there something that about Taiwan that hits you and you're like, oof, that's an experience? Or like something you'll remember when you go back to the US, like the smell of something, bring back these memories.
Oh wait, so I see a comment. Oh, your father's from Kaohsiung? Really? That's so cool. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to go there. It seems like a really cool city. Definitely hotter than Taichung, but I'm from the Philippines. It's okay. That's so cool. It's so cool to know. Yeah. Okay. So most memorable smell. I don't know where. Yeah, there's two MRT lines now. Orange line and a red line. Yeah. So
There you go.
I'm excited. I think there's also a light rail that takes you from like the pier down to like back in the city. Pretty cool. Yeah, it's really good. It's really cool.
Cool.
Yeah, you should come back to Taiwan. Like a lot of change is happening.
We'll try to be alive.
It is. But so my most memorable smell. I mean, Toto who I called two things, but I guess it's actually not my most memorable smell. I mean, I don't know. I guess everyone has warned me about Totohu ahead of time, so it's nothing like that really shocked me. But I would say the tea eggs at 7-Eleven. Like when you walk into a 7-Eleven here, you'll just smell tea eggs when you walk in. And for those of you who don't know, I'm not sure if they have it in China too, but
Yeah.
in convenience stores here, they'll just have like a boiling thing of like tea and marinade.
Like a
They'll just dump
cauldron.
yeah, a cauldron of
Yeah.
just eggs, and it's like really cheap here. It's like 10 kwai for an egg, and yeah, they're like flavored. It's like a hard boiled egg, but they just have so much flavor.
Yeah.
Um,
It's once you go tea
like,
egg, you never go back.
no, I love getting tea eggs here, and I think
I
just
think
kind
they're
of
duck
talking about
eggs too. I don't think they're chicken
oh,
eggs. I could be wrong. Maybe
I
that's just
think
a
a lot
specific kind.
maybe I think they're chicken eggs, the ones I've had, but duck eggs.
I'll look
Um,
it up.
or
But
I'm
keep talking.
surprised.
Keep talking about
I love
the tea eggs.
I
Burning my
love
tongue
burning my
on tea eggs. Yeah.
yeah, you have to. You can't just open it right away. You
Yeah.
kind of have to let it sit and then start peeling it a little bit. Yeah. I would say though, like 7-Eleven has just been such a big part of like a part of Taiwanese culture and maybe elsewhere in Asia. So just going off the fact that tea eggs are in 7-Eleven. I call it seven. Some locals call it seven because it's easier, even though it's just two numbers. But it's just such a big thing here because I feel like in the US, the impression I get of 7-Elevens, I've never stepped into one, but it's just um monsters and like I feel like in slurpees, that's my only impression of 7-Elevens in the
Wait, did you say
US. But
you've never been to a 7-Eleven in the US?
I just feel like I never had the need to. I don't know. They weren't that many to start with. They're not really convenience stores in Connecticut, right?
Really? Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
I mean, maybe it's depending on where you and I grew up, like where
maybe.
we were, because I feel like around where I grew up there was a decent amount.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, I feel like I don't know, like I feel like if you're gonna drive through like different states or something, like you'll come across it at a gas station at least or something.
oh yeah, gas station. I think because those 7 near my house closed by the gas station. It got turned into something else. So at least in the US. But in Taiwan, I feel like they're in every single corner. Like you can rely on either a 7 or a Family Mart or like I think they also have High Life or OK Mart. You can find a convenience store very easily. And for those of you who don't know, probably the same in China too. But in Taiwan, like this, I pay my rent at 7. I pay my water bill, my electricity bill. I pick up my train tickets at 7. I do everything at a 7. You can for delivery. You usually, if you buy online, you send them to the closest 7-Eleven to your apartment. So it is what a convenience store should be.
Wow,
And they
that's
have all these
awesome.
different snacks. You can even get boba at a 7-Eleven here.
Yeah.
It's
I
just so
I did hear that culturally they're like a different thing in Taiwan than they are in the US. Like it's a
It's
big part of daily life.
like I wouldn't know what to do without a 7-Eleven anymore.
Wow.
Like it's just it's your coffee stop, it's your snack stop. You can also get meals at 7. Is what the boba at 7's actually quite good. Yes, I had it once just to try it, and it's quite good. I'm surprised. Yeah.
Do they make it
Uh,
there or is it like prepackaged?
it's kind of prepackaged when I saw to make it, but like it wasn't bad though.
Mm,
I mean, I'd rather get it elsewhere, but
right.
not
Is
bad.
it cheaper than
Um,
a boba place?
no, I mean I think it's a little more expensive, but by what, like 10
Just
kwai
for the
maybe,
convenience. Hmm.
just for
That's
the
interesting.
convenience.
Mooselight Kingdom said the 7-Eleven logo, everything is uppercase except for the N. I just looked it up. That's true. I never noticed
Yeah,
that.
it is true. That's a good point. I just never noticed it either. I don't know why.
Yeah, the tea eggs though, I that is definitely like even from like me living in China, the convenience stores they had like most of them had that too. I do miss that. The tea eggs were really good. I keep forgetting I can like make it at home, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I just
But
never
there's
thought of it.
it's just cheap and easy when you're here
Yeah.
in Taiwan. In Asia, you just grab one in the bag and leave. You don't have to
Yeah,
do you know here.
they also have sometimes they have the ones in the refrigerated section that are like vacuum packed in the little plastic bag. Do you know what I'm talking
Wait,
about?
I packed mine away, but I do know what you're talking
Yeah.
about, like the vacuum packed eggs. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are already peeled for you. They're like cold. That's like if you're like,
Mhm.
I'm really hungry and really poor and in a really big hurry.
And bigger. I mean, even though tea eggs are quite cheap already, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's more of a snack. I feel tea eggs. If I eat enough, I probably shouldn't eat that many, but
Yeah.
you have your protein right there in an egg.
The yes, you were an astute child, David. Um
Oh.
so the I have a very specific convenience store memory too, but it's for the morning. I don't know if Taiwan is like this, but in Shanghai at or well a lot of Chinese cities, excuse me. Um in the morning they have baozi, like
Oh,
the
bao.
yeah, the bun, steam bun. And it's only in the morning. And it always bugged me because that's like the perfect food after a night out of drinking. But they never
Yes.
have it at night. And like almost every day on my way to school in Shanghai, I would go by. I lived right next to a Lawson, which is a
A
convenience store
convenience.
that also, strangely enough, got started in the U.S., then moved to Japan, got super
Really?
successful in Japan, and then migrated throughout Asia, and then all the U.S. stores closed. So
Oh,
yeah. Anyway,
I didn't know
history
we had
lesson.
that.
But anyway, at the Lawson, they'd have these baozi like every morning, and I would get a couple and go on my OFO, which is like the QR code bike that you like, you scan the QR code on your app and then you take it.
The sharing thing, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'd go to class and I'd eat my baozi while like in class, and that was like, or like while on the bike. I love that memory. And then at night, after like drinking, after like a night out, the only thing I wanted would be the balsa. But they were like putting it in the steamer to get ready for the morning, but they weren't cooking it yet. And I was like,
Yeah.
I need one. And they're like, no, they're not cooked. And
But I
I'd be
just
like,
want
I'll pay
now.
you. I'll pay you 5 kwai. Like, can you put it in the microwave? Can you take like
And
six
just
of them?
heat it up.
And it was like some places they do it, some places wouldn't. And I remember I'd be like drinking the other thing that I missed was like you could buy soju for pretty cheap in the convenience store.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you buy it, you drink it, and then be like, I need some balsa. And like, you'd have to
exactly.
negotiate with them, please give me the balsa, please.
Yeah, also, well, why can't I have it at night? It's like having breakfast for dinner. Like just give it
Yeah.
to me.
It's the vegetables inside and the fluffy bread. It was like the
Oh,
perfect to soak up
that is
alcohol.
so good.
Yeah.
Yes, we actually have I'm fortunate. It's fortunate for me because I do have a breakfast place that I mean, it's like a 24-hour, like it's called Lai Lai Soybean. It's a 24-hour breakfast stop. And it's I
Wow.
mean, it's kind of a walk from my apartment, but if I really wanted to go get pizza, I probably could.
So they have like
So
24-hour breakfast, like Chinese breakfast places in Taiwan.
I'm not sure how common it is. Like that's just
Sounds
one
amazing.
place that's like really I think that that's just really popular. I get kind of stressed going there because they're super like fast paced and they're just like
Mm.
very efficient,
Like
but
hurry up. It's
they're
like going to Cat's
really good.
Deli or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much. So I think that's the only place that's open 24/7 though. That's like a breakfast spot. But
that's
a lot of
amazing.
places they open at like 6 in the morning, so you have to wait for your milk.
I gotta say, I am a big fan of Chinese breakfast food, like
I love
doughnuts and youtiao, like the
youtiao. Oh,
yeah,
I love youtiao.
and the hot like homemade soy milk. You dip it in. Love it.
Oh, the soy milk. Soy milk is so good. It's such a big thing in like Asia, I think, soy
Yeah,
milk.
the like glass bottles with the little like fabric thing on the top, and you like put the thing
Yeah,
through.
it's
Man,
so good. I'm gonna miss that when I go back.
you will because I've been missing it.
I'm
It's
worried.
like even when you go to like a Chinatown and stuff, like stuff like that is a little bit harder to find. I feel like in the U.S.
It's so easy. You just there there's going to be like hometown soybean milk everywhere you go, but
Yeah,
in certain areas, Chinatown, you kind of I don't know. It's quite hard to find because it's not something that they have right there.
I think you need to
I think.
know a place specifically, kind of,
Mhm.
Which when you're looking for, you're like in the mood and you're kind of new to that place, you might not be able to find it.
Right,
Um,
right.
okay, I could talk about food forever, but
I know.
we've been talking for a while. Uh, I want to ask one more question while we still have the time, and
Right.
then we can kind of transition out or whatever you want if you want to talk about some more things specifically. But even though like it seems like your experience in Taiwan was mostly awesome, I wanted to ask the question like, what brought you up about your experience in Taiwan, and what brought you down? Like, what were some like really great positive things, and what are some of the things that you struggle with? Because no matter what, whenever you're traveling abroad, there's always some struggles.
Right.
It's you're a foreigner there, you're trying to adjust and learn, like even if you're there for a year or a long time, there's still stuff that makes it more difficult, like when you're abroad. So like, yeah, what kind of brought you up and what brought you down about your experience?
So I think what brought me up, I think just having like the freedom to go around, maybe because of COVID, but I think even without COVID, because when I studied abroad in Europe, they just had such an amazing public transportation system, and
Hmm.
living kind of a suburban part of the U.S., I don't know, it was just quite difficult for me to get around, especially since I can't drive. But like I need to work on. I need to work on. I know I need to work on it, but so just kind of having the freedom in Taiwan just to go everywhere. It's such a small island. It's very easy to travel around.
Right.
Um, so I think that was like pretty nice. And just being independent was like a good feeling too. But let's see.
Is that your first
I think
time like living abroad by yourself, like not counting like college? It was like your first time kind of living on your own long term in a place.
right, it is. I mean, I mean, well, I studied abroad in Europe when I was
Oh,
in
really?
college.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that counts, but
Yeah,
I
you
was
can.
also family then. So this is not my first time. I would say though it's an interesting experience because it's my first time living alone in Asia, away from
Hmm.
family. Because I whenever I go back to Asia, I'm always with family members. This is a new experience for me, which I it's kind of fun navigating on my own, but at the same time, I do miss my family.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the pluses of Taiwan. It's been like very convenient, and it just interacting with locals has been like very fun. Teaching at my school, it's tiring, but very rewarding. I know my kids have been kind of telling me like, "Oh wait, are you really leaving in July?" No, I was hearing one of these third graders talking in the hall. Oh no, second grader talking in the hallway with her friend, and she was saying, "Oh, I'm so excited for third grade English because Teacher Megan's also going. Teacher Megan also teaches third grade English. I didn't have the heart to tell them I'm not gonna be here next year.
Oh
So it's very sweet that, and at some other schools I volunteered at, they're like, oh, can you stay? Can you be our English teacher forever? Can you, like, you can live on the fourth floor in my classroom. I'll clean the bathroom for you. So like, I would say it's a very rewarding experience, even though it's tiring. Um,
well, that's good. You
and
made
of
a
course,
good impact then, you know.
yeah, I really yeah, that was it. It's really like I get very tired at the end of the day, but
Mhm.
it's still a very rewarding experience. But I will say the one side note, Taiwanese school system, like the public school system, at least we have mandatory nap time. It's like one cultural difference I forgot to point out in the beginning, but we just after lunch we have a 40-minute period where not just students but teachers may also nap. It's so nice. I
Do
just
you
pass
have
out
to
for
nap or you just have free time?
it's like I think the students are kind of required to just, unless they have to like go do something like with a teacher, like prepare for a competition or something. It's or go to tutoring or something. Like it's just a period where you just lay your head down on your desk and
Yeah.
just teachers don't really, I mean, you can if you want to, or you can do work, but I'm tired and I like my naps. So going back to the US, I'm going to be so disoriented with the fact that
Yeah.
I cannot take a nap in the middle of the day. I used
That's
to get in
something.
trouble for not falling asleep during sleep time.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, yeah, we tried to make the kids go to bed.
That's something that I noticed too, like the first time I went to China when I was 19, and like I noticed like all these people like sleeping like this like I guess on their lunch breaks or you know whatever, like, and I was like, what's
Yeah.
happening to everybody? Like, at first I was like, is is there some gas leaking? Like,
Like
and
what's
then I
going on
realized
every
like, oh no, it's like on breaks, like people take naps, like, and they just fall asleep on a table like that. It took me a while to
Yeah.
realize that.
I even brought a pillow with me to school. It's like a little. Actually, if my big bro is still on the call, he gave me a pillow, a customized pillowcase with like the Italian airport on it. But I bring it to school and
That's awesome.
I pass it out. Let's see. Teacher would appoint someone to be a nap snitch. Nap snitch.
Wow.
I don't think we have a nap snitch at our school, but I don't know why you didn't take advantage of it. I love nap time. But
That
that's just one side of the story, but
the nap
uh
snitch isn't sleeping though.
exactly. Like, wait, so how does that happen?
You should have
That's a
volunteered to be the nap snitch if you weren't tired.
right. Yeah, actually. Huh. So I guess, but things that kind of brought me down. I mean, obviously it's not like like you said, being abroad is it's not gonna be all smooth sailing. Even when I
Mhm.
was in Prague, things were obviously like not completely smooth sailing, but here I think it's a different experience just being in Asia and kind of having such a complex background. Because everyone just kind of assumes like I think it's the fact everyone assumes I'm a local, has been kind of hard on me just because, especially more of a language barrier. I just feel like I kind of have the guilt of not knowing enough Mandarin to kind of get by. But like, part of me just hopes. I mean, Taiwanese people are super friendly and they don't mind, but I kind of just hope that I'm not disappointing them when I can't speak Mandarin. That's kind of one thing, and I think maybe things would be different without COVID, but I mean, for Fulbright Taiwan, like even without COVID, we're not really allowed to leave the country except during like Lunar New Year or like I mean, or like in the summer. They want to stay in the country, just to like be more immersed, which I understand. But since I have family in the Philippines, like they were really excited to come over and visit, but unfortunately that couldn't happen.
Mhm.
And I think the lack of family here has just kind of been, or I don't know, it's just been, especially this week, has been kind of rough on me because of the COVID outbreak. It's just kind of been really stressful. Like I don't. every day there's, I mean, right as we speak, there's probably new news coming out, and just because COVID's such a big thing in Taiwan, like, it's not like
Yeah.
the US where there's 1,000 cases, like, okay. But in Taiwan, it's like every hour I'm getting something new, and it's like, oh, our school's gonna shut down. Like, should I prepare like more food in my pantry? Like, what do I do? And kind of being away from people, I feel like I'm kind of alone trying to manage it. I've
Yeah.
been okay, but it's just been like a big, I'm alone. I'm trying to figure this out on my own. And it's not like when the pandemic hit in the US, I was with my family members.
Right. Right.
Uh, but also, I think another big point to just being in Taiwan, like, I don't know if you've heard about it, but there was a huge, like, there was like, we experienced the worst, like, train derailment, train crash in Taiwan last
Yeah.
month. I'm not
Yeah.
the US news, but
Yeah. It
I
it
was
was
just,
in the news here. Yeah.
it was okay. It was the worst we've had in decades. It was a train, for context, it was a train going from Taipei down to Hualien, which is a very famous like tourist destination spot, also a Fulbright site, but it's also a destination spot. Very pretty, very nature like. But it was during the we call it tomb sweeping weekend.
Right.
So that's when a lot of people go home and kind of go to their families. They clean the tombs of their ancestors, kind of celebrate together, and it's a long weekend. It's Friday till Sunday, till Monday. So that was a very long weekend, and
Hmm.
my cohort in Taichung and I, we said, okay, let's go to Hualien this weekend because Hualien's quite a trek to get to. It's a 6-hour train ride from Taichung. So I think I was just very shaken up by that event because we were trying to leave on Friday morning, and it just so happened like, oh, the train tickets ran out. Like, let's just take a half day off on Thursday,
Hmm.
and like, it's whatever. We'll just take it off on Thursday and get to Hualien then. So we were this close to being on that train because we were looking at that exact train ticket. We're like, oh, let's
Right.
take this one. That's gonna be that's most convenient. But unfortunately, I mean, fortunately for us, that didn't work out. And apparently, like, we didn't even know the train crashed because we were scootering around Hualien. I mean, not me. I was on the pass. I was a passenger. I don't scooter, but we were seeing a lot of ambulances pass us by. We were wondering what was going on, and then we were going to the national park, which is Taroko Gorge. It's a very popular national park. So it wasn't until we parked there that we realized the train derailed like 15 kilometers away from where we were, and we knew two people on that train ride also who unfortunately didn't make it out. So I think that was definitely like quite terrifying,
Wow.
especially thinking that we like knowing that I could have been on that train because we were thinking about going like on taking that train. So that
Yeah.
was like a very big event, I think I would say.
So you knew
But
two
overall,
people that were killed in that accident?
I knew
Oh
two
wow.
people. Yeah. So it was
That's
very
horrible.
I, I think I could have enjoyed Hualien more, but I think at that point when I found out we heard the news about our friends who were on that ride, we kind of yeah, I really wanted to go home by then. It was just
Yeah.
like not the best
Yeah.
experience. I do want to go back another point just to kind of make better memories, but for now I think I will just
Yeah,
oh,
that's tough.
it'll be a while before I go back to Hualien. But it's very
Yeah.
pretty, I would say. And normally it was the worst train crash in decades, but it was because of like an outside force. So I don't want to like tell people not to go. Like,
Hmm.
I would say Taiwan is quite safe overall. It was just a very bad, unfortunate accident. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's horrible. I'm sorry to hear that. There was a somewhat similar situation when I was in China where the bullet train derailed um,
Mm.
kind of on the same route but a different train, and we were thinking like, oh, if we instead of going from Beijing to Shanghai, if we went to that other place and then we maybe were be on that train because it was like the same time.
Yeah.
And so then they shut down like the high speed train. We had to take like the slow train back, which was like it was like a 16-hour train, so it was pretty crazy. But like yeah, actually knowing someone that's in the accident, that makes it a lot like hit harder to home, you know. So that, yeah, I mean, that's horrible. And especially like during that time too, you know, that holiday, it's like that's rough.
Yeah, it was very. I think that's also why the accident was so bad, just because there were so many people going that weekend. So
Yeah.
that also kind of contributed to that. But yeah, but other than that, like it's just been, I think overall my experience has been really good here. Obviously, there are moments when I feel kind of down, especially during like this COVID outbreak that's been going
Right.
on. If we did this live stream like a week ago, it'd be a little different because there weren't as many alerts. Um, they only had 5 cases, but now there's like at least 180. So I we don't really know what's going to happen from here. Like, I'll be
Mm.
honest, I don't know if like last year they canceled Fullbright. They put a call to everything and they sent everybody back home. So I'm just hoping the same won't happen this year. Um, Everything's kind of up in the air. My school hasn't gone online. We're only at level 2. Level 4 is when things will kind of be very, very intense. So we'll
Mm.
see. So hopefully the situation gets better.
Yeah. So, um, like that, like, you know, in the US now we have like thousands of cases every day. So like 100 and something is sounds like so little compared to what we're used
Right.
to. But I know for Taiwan that's like growing and they want to like stop it in its tracks. How is the do you know like what the vaccination program has kind of been like, or have they been pushing that, or is it hard for Taiwan to get a lot of vaccines?
Right. So for vaccine wise, I can speak for it because I actually got my first shot here. But it's just been kind of a because I do plan on going back to the US in between my first and second year because they allow us to, but I don't know with COVID right now, we'll see. But so I wanted to get my vaccine here, because of that reason. So it was kind of complicated, I would say. I guess in general, I was talking to some Taiwanese locals this a couple of months ago. They weren't really interested in getting the vaccine. I think it's just because Taiwan's so safe, like there's no COVID
Mm.
cases, and the only vaccine we have, well, as of now, is AZ AstraZeneca, and that's the one that's not approved in the U.S. Even though I believe it's perfectly fine. A lot of countries are rolling out AstraZeneca, but
Right.
I think they were kind of hesitant on getting that vaccine. So AstraZeneca has been around for a while. From my understanding, they kind of separate us into different priority groups. So elderly is first, or something like
Mm.
that. Sick leave. I know the Tokyo 2021 athletes were another like kind of high up there too.
Right.
But no one was really getting it. So they said, okay, well, if you need to travel for work or study, and you're not on this priority list, you can just make an appointment and pay for it. So that's what I did. As soon as I heard the announcement, I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to get this done because it's 8 weeks in between 2 doses for
Right.
AstraZeneca. So I was just like, oh, I need to get this as soon as possible. I do believe we're getting Moderna at some point, but I know I'm not going to be a priority for that. Like more people will want that, and so it just made sense to get something I could get my hands on.
Right.
It was just kind of complicated because at the time when I was getting AstraZeneca, they wouldn't even let me book a second appointment just because they weren't sure how many doses they would have. So it
Right.
was just kind of a complicated, like unset. Like I was kind
Yeah.
of anxious going into this because in the U.S. when you get like your first dose, okay, 4 weeks or 3 weeks, I don't know. In between doses, you set up your next one and you're all set. Here it's kind of like I have to kind of book my second appointment online when
Hmm.
they make the announcement that I can.
Right.
But right now with the COVID outbreak, everybody has been rushing to get this vaccine.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I feel like they definitely could have rolled out the vaccine a little more efficiently in the
Hmm.
beginning because I would like to know I could get my second dose.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the vaccine situation here. Most just AstraZeneca. Moderna's coming in at some point. I think it's approved for emergency use, which I don't know what that means exactly, but more and more Taiwanese people are trying to get the vaccine, and I think maybe this COVID outbreak is probably the wake up call that we
Right.
needed because we can't open our borders, until
Yeah.
everybody's vaccinated, and I think
Yeah.
that's the whole world needs to be vaccinated.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, it's like that's the thing. It's still going to be circulating and mute. The worst part is the mutations, right? So like
Yes.
maybe, I mean, like the developed world, quote unquote that term,
Yeah.
gets the vaccines first because that's who develops them pretty much and
Right.
funds them. And then, kind of trickles down to, the so-called third world and stuff. So like let's say in a certain part of the world, they don't get the vaccines until like 2023, which some people are saying is probable,
Right.
right? For certain parts of the world, certain countries. If, if they have COVID outbreaks there and it continues to continue, then, that could have the potential to mutate and then we need new vaccines and, at least like I'm not an expert. I'm not saying any of this.
Yeah,
This is
and
just what I've heard medical experts talk about the dangers of um, like having only part of the world vaccinated because then it's never going to really be over until or maybe it won't be over, but at least maybe we'll have an effective vaccine because it'll stop mutating as much, but
right. Just like the flu, I mean, it's kind of like how we have the flu every year. We get like a flu shot every year. I
yeah.
mean, it's like obviously there are different variants, but like, I mean, COVID. I hope it can we can get it to that level where we don't have to worry about it mutating so much because it's a concern. I don't know how much longer we can take it.
Yeah, but yeah, hopefully, people are getting vaccinated in droves like you're saying, so that's good. um Hopefully they don't run out. There's enough for everybody. I think in America we're like 30 something percent of American adults are fully vaccinated, and it's like 50% have had at least one dose, I think. So
Okay, good.
it's pretty good. Yeah. So anyway, you know, it's going. It's just got to give it time. Hopefully
Oh, but
2023 is more normal. Um,
yeah, hopefully earlier, but I doubt that.
yeah. But anyway, so is there anything else you'd like to touch upon before we end the podcast today, Megan? Anything specific?
um, see, I don't know. I think I covered like most of it, and I know it was kind of got like a little serious at the end, but like even though it does get, I mean, I just feel like I've always been away from home. I've moved a lot throughout my life, and um, thanks for the great chat. Yeah, of course. I've kind of been away from home everywhere around the world type of thing. But and I do miss family. I mean, I'm making new friends here. Do miss family, but I kind of just see my whole existence and experience as kind of like when I start missing people, missing home or whatever that means. Um, I kind of just see it as I'm really like fortunate because it kind of means like I have a little bit of me like in everywhere I go. So I kind of
Yeah.
just see this as even when I get kind of down and sad, like oh, I miss certain people, and everywhere I go, I miss people. So I think that's a good sign. I'm not sure if I
Yeah.
articulated that right, but it just means I have a home wherever I go. So like
No.
even abroad can be kinda rough for some people, but I would say like just make the most out of the experience because I mean you could be like the people last year in Fulbright where it got cut so short suddenly. But definitely I'm trying to take advantage of whatever I can here while I still can.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great perspective. I think that's a really nice way of putting it. Like if you spend a lot of time in different places all over the world, you start missing the people from wherever else, like now that you're in Taiwan, you miss people back in the US, but when you're back in the US, you'll miss Taiwan,
Exactly.
So it's kind of a good excuse to go out and go back to places, right? Like you have
Yeah.
these places or these people that and you can go back and experience it again or show someone new, um what what your life was like. So I think that's cool. The other thing that's going to be cool is when you like when you go back to the US and then you come back to Taiwan one day, maybe like a decade later, you see how it changes. Like Moose
Okay,
Kingdom was saying, like, oh, there's an MRT there now. Wow.
I know Taichung's trying to get a second MRT line. I don't know how quickly they'll get it, but at some point they will. So I'm going to be like, oh, back in my day, we only had the green line.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's definitely like something I noticed too. Like I went to China like 7 years apart, and I noticed like the big changes, um like you were saying with the traffic. When I first lived in Beijing, it was like a free for all. Like yes, there were traffic lights, but they didn't really matter,
Yeah,
and you just
no
crosswalks
traffic
didn't
rules.
matter. You just, it's like a Frogger. You try to like get to the other side, like lane by lane. You
Yeah,
stand between the white lines, like, and then run. And nowadays they have, like when I went back in 2017, they have these cameras everywhere, and if you jaywalk, then they take your picture, and there's this big like uh board where they show like the criminal jaywalkers like photos and like shame them, and like they have all their information up on a board, like this person jaywalked.
well,
And they
but
have
that
like,
how jaywalk though?
huh?
How do you not jaywalk in an environment like that?
Well,
Is
it changed, is what I'm saying, is that the cities changed and they prioritize like traffic safety. And in those 7 years
oh,
that I like came back, it was like totally different. Like it used to be like, oh, just go and try to make it across. And now it's like if you go and there's like a no walk signal, you, they're gonna take a picture of you and your face will be up on a board, or you could get a ticket written up of you. Like it's like totally different. So I was like, okay, this is like, there's a lot, like you'll probably experience that too if you like come back to Taiwan after
yeah,
that. I could keep talking about this forever, but anyway, we got to end the podcast at some point. Better
yeah.
better when we're having
Or-
a good conversation until waiting for us to be like,
But I mean, it's a good sign that we have so much to talk about, but unfortunately, we
yeah,
do have to end it at some point.
at some point, at the 2 hour and 40 minute mark, it looks like. So
We did say only 2 hours, and no,
what?
we said 2 hours, like that'll be our mark. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, that's good. That means we had a nice, a good,
yeah,
hopefully interesting
yeah.
discussion for the viewers. Yeah, we really appreciate all the people in chat with their questions and comments, and everyone that's watching. And thank you, Megan, so much for coming on the podcast. Gonna try to make it more like a real podcast from now on. um yeah, hopefully we'll have a lot more awesome guests like Megan. Check her out on Instagram, Megan on the go, Megan dot on dot the dot go.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to plug, or any closing words, Megan?
Well, that's the only account I'm really like running right now. I mean, I do have a travel blog website, but I haven't updated it since I left quarantine. So I'll get to that eventually. And maybe work a little bit on YouTube or TikTok. Maybe we'll see. But no, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I'm really glad I was able. Thank you for accommodating like my time. The 12-hour time zone difference is
Oh no,
a little tricky.
this is my normal streaming time anyway, so I'm good.
Okay, awesome.
It's
Yeah.
morning for you there still, or
I
it's
think
afternoon.
it's oh, oh yeah, you're right. Maybe I'll look at a little Chinese late breakfast out there. But yeah, it's not a problem. I mean, I guess it all worked out because I wasn't supposed to be here this weekend, and then suddenly COVID happened. So
COVID happened.
everything worked out.
Yeah.
This was so much fun. No,
Yeah.
and all the viewers there, thanks for stopping by. And a couple of my friends are on here. I think they're still here, so we'll see. Hope I didn't bore you all. I always talk about Taiwan, so I don't know if they've got sick of me talking about it yet. But thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, maybe this will get the Taiwan talk out of your system a little bit. Almost three
Yeah,
hours straight of Taiwan. No, but
you know, we still have so much to talk about. I don't think.
you want to go
No,
3 hours? No. No, I'm just
no,
kidding.
no. I've been here for 3 months. No, 5 months. I've been here for five
An hour
months.
for
So
every month. Come on. No.
So
Musa Kim says this was fun. I appreciate. What is that thing? Oh, is that a party popper emoji?
I can't really. It's a little blurry in my end,
It
but
looks like a potato, like a sweet potato. Um.
oh, the
Oh, it's
also
a
potato
chili
is different.
pepper.
Here. Oh, chili pepper. Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, now
But
I see
also
it.
another word that they call it ma ling shu in Taiwan, but I think
Um,
they call it something else in
Hongshu,
China, right?
the sweet
Yeah,
potato.
that's not the same.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
no,
yeah.
we call it ma ling regular potato. I think
Tudao,
ma ling. Okay, it's definitely not the
tudao.
same as it is.
Tudao is potato in mainland Chinese Mandarin.
We call it ma ling shu
It
in
mean it
Taiwan.
means it was a
Yeah.
spicy time.
It's
Yeah.
spicy time. That's what we wanna give our audience a spicy time.
Wait, David, aka Mooselight Kingdom. He had a little arhwar on that. Tudar.
Our oh, a little our that.
That's like one of my favorite words. I know we're supposed to be ending, but it's too fun. One of
Yeah,
my
I
favorite
know.
words in Chinese is the Beijing Hua, the Beijing 口音, the
The,
the
the
Beijing dialect. Trying to think of the English for monkey.
dialect for what money? What is it?
Monkey.
Monkey.
Ho, ho,
Whore. You said whore?
ho,
Really? You said what's it?
ho.
Whore?
It's ho, but it's like ho. They had the
Whore.
ho. It's
Yeah,
so
Taiwanese
fun.
people
Oh
here.
yeah,
You speak
and we
Beijing accent. They're like, yeah, you're from the mainland, right?
and we can't oh wait, apparently that also means little devil. But yeah,
Whore? Oh,
David, when David and I met, like then I think it was the night we met or whatever. We were talking about the Beijing accent, and we like had this joke where we are like Beijing.
Beijing.
So that's why I said that. That's like our thing.
Oh, that's the Beijing accent. Yes.
Thanks for the making an my girl and error. He says he's adding the R for the
No,
good chat. Thank you, thank you.
it's a little
It's
blurry
fun.
in
It's
my
fun.
end.
Okay, let's end on the high note. That was a lot of fun.
Yes.
So follow Megan.on.the.go on Instagram
Yes.
if you want to follow her experience to the Fulbright program in Taiwan and her all of her travels after that. She's got some really
Yes.
awesome photos and yeah, you can see the video. You have it up on there of you getting swabbed with by the like
Yes, I do.
hazmat
I do
suit.
have it
Yeah.
up there. It's quite an experience.
Yeah.
Yes. I also have my old travels too. I've been to 25 countries, Taiwan being my 25th, so do have a lot of travel experience. Yes.
27. I got 27.
Nice, nice.
I gotta go to more though. I have a thing where I have to have the number of countries match my age, so I'm already surpassed.
Right. So
Anyway,
COVID's kind of a little delaying this, but
yeah, you know, a little thing called COVID. All right, but anyway, thanks everybody. This is like the
yeah,
extended
thank you.
goodbye.
Yeah, when you like are trying to say goodbye to your relatives and then you're like talking
Oh
for
yeah,
another hour.
no, yeah, that's my family's totally. You say goodbye 3 hours later, then you're in the car and you're still saying goodbye.
You should say
Anyway,
goodbye in a car and
yeah, and then there's take some food.
and then you take that food. Oh, like by the way, I can.
Okay, I gotta end it.
Okay, well,
We're gonna end up talking for 3 hours, which would be
I
I'd be
know.
okay with that, but
I'm fine with it, but I don't know about our viewers, but
I
I'm
don't know.
fine with it. I
But I think we
understand.
should.
Yes.
I think we gotta call it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Sharing adventures live for more podcasts like
Oh
this.
yes. Follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/adventures live. Also on YouTube, as you can see, youtube.com/adventures vlog. I got a lot of different content on here. This podcast will be on this channel eventually. You can check out my previous podcast is currently the newest video up on there. So check that out if you feel so inclined. And all of my man, it's hard to point. There you go. All of my updates for the Twitch and YouTube are on my Instagram at Adventures Official. So yeah, check me out there. All right. Thanks everybody. Appreciate it. And Have a great evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you
Wherever you
are.
are in the world. Yeah.
And peace. All right. Peace out, everybody.
And
Bye.
bye.